Welcome to the Cherry Picker, the horror movie podcast where we like to kill people, but not really. I'm your host, Zack Cherry, and with me as always...
It's like someone out there is taking all these stories and making them reality. I'm Eddie of Edward is Truth.
And today we are celebrating 25 years of urban legend.
Wow.
Released September 25th, 1998. So not quite, but, close enough.
Right.
And this is one of my favorites. I'm gonna say not like favorite, but I mean like of this ilk of the post Scream 96 era. I think this is a really good movie. I think it's kind of like on par with the quality.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, well, we're gonna have a lot to talk about then,
but because you are not, you do not agree.
I think we're kind of running a theme because I kept thinking oh, it's funny we saw What Lies Beneath last week because I had a lot of the same reactions this time where I remembered the reveal, basically, can't ever forget that about the secret identity of who's been doing all this, and I remember kind of being disappointed in my initial viewing. And not cottoning to it and not watching it over and over again subsequently. I'm glad I saw it this time. Because just like with What Lies Beneath, things that I had forgotten, cast members that I had forgotten, and I got to enjoy that.
It's a solid cast.
It absolutely.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Sorry, all in all.
No, but all in all, I mean, we could just get into it.
Well, we could get into it now, or it can wait until an hour and 5 minutes.
An hour from now, like usual.
Yeah. Well, I did want to ask you though. Yeah. When did you first see the movie?
Not that long after its release. I did not see it in the theater. This was one that my sister saw before me. I think she might have had a friend over. And they were watching it at like a sleepover or something because they were, teens. And I was, 19 probably? Okay. So I was around. And I remember seeing the reveal. That's all I remember seeing. And them laughing and in a derogatory way at the movie. Mm-hmm. And I thought, what is this? And they told me, urban legend. It's so bad. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, maybe I'll see it one of these days. And at some point, I guess it was on cable or something, and I did see it. And I remembered at the time thinking, yeah, this is bad. I have a more nuanced opinion now. Okay. Which we can unpack as the plot progresses.
You're so impressionable. It's just like this. What did the kids in the Blockbuster say about Freddy versus Jason?
The movie is dumb.
Yeah. I mean, you had already formed your opinion, but yeah.
I was so mad. No, I told you I felt very protective when I heard that. I was like, hey, it's not the best movie, but don't you go calling Freddy versus Jason dumb.
Yeah.
I don't know if
and you know what?
Urban Legend dumb if I would.
I feel protective of Urban Legend. I feel like, because I hear... I think most people are very favorable towards it.
I think so.
But... it's kind of like of that ilk of movies when people talk about, following Scream, you have I Know What You Did Last Summer. I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. Those tend to be above Urban Legend, and I could not disagree any more because, as we've already discussed those movies, I think that they're very middling. I think that Urban Legend actually steps up to the plate, and it does the Scream thing in a very different way because I don't look at this movie and I don't see it as a riff on Scream. I think it's just it came about very serendipitously because it was, Scream was hot and they're just here's a Scream-like movie. But I think that the things that they were doing with this movie was more so callbacks to slasher movies of the 80s.
Sure.
And not so much it doesn't take that same sort of meta approach, whereas I feel I Know What You Did Last Summer kind of there's moments in it because it is Kevin Williamson adapted in a way, but like with everything here, it's just like it's sort of the Scream template, but it's a completely different style. And that's what I really love about it. And that's what I really love about Jamie Blanks, the director, because we already covered Valentine. That was our second episode, and we sung praises for that. And I like Urban Legend a little bit more. I think that it's
really?
just like a little bit more well produced and put together. But I still really enjoy both of these movies. Like they're very close on par for me.
Okay.
But I just feel like with his direction, it's just like he was doing things, and I mentioned this on Valentine, like his style and just like the attention to detail and everything that he did, and just sort of like his creativity was not matched with, because it's like it's hard to compare anyone to Wes Craven and just be like, you know, oh, who's better? Because I mean, it's Wes Craven. But I think that if like any of the movies that were coming out at that time, like Jamie Blanks actually gave a shit, like Wes Craven did when it came to the Scream movies, and you could really tell in his work that he was putting something together. He cared about continuity. He had a vision, and he wasn't just like a hired person by the studio who's just like, here, we have a horror movie, and like, all right, it's a job. Like he actually took it seriously. He actually had fun with it. And you can tell from this movie, and that's why I like this so much more than either of the I Know What You Dids.
I mean, see, as far as liking better, I'd probably have to like watch them all again, because like all that fallout from Scream, those movies were never really my jam anyway. Like I was already moving on to more original stuff. Just as far as like my appetite, like my my cinematic appetite at that point in my life, I was longing for something that I didn't feel I was the demographic for. I wanted to watch older. And so I would watch things like this, kind of like, with a wry smile and just kind of like, ready to see like, okay, entertain me. I think I might have been a little bit more, I don't even know what the word is, just unfair to this film, because there were quite a few moments that I enjoyed. But one thing, I'm glad that you brought up Wes Craven before I did, because one thing that I thought about was Wes Craven while I was watching this movie, and I just kept thinking, there are things that, little details here and there and transitions and whatnot, that where I'm just kind of like, I feel like Wes, or a director akin to a Wes Craven, might not have let that go. But also I know that, sometimes it's not entirely in the director's hands. We've covered this many times over. I don't know what the story is with the making of this movie. Maybe you know more than I do. But I do prefer Valentine to this one as a Jamie Blanks joint. Just in the sense that I feel like Valentine for me is at least, every frame of that movie I feel like I'm watching the same movie, and I feel like it's always grandiose, corny soap opera, quasi horror. Like it reminds me of, I don't know, it's kind of like those late night Skinamax or Showtime Red Shoe Diaries after hour type of programming, but done with a sense of humor and done right, I feel. Whereas and that's Valentine, but with this one, I can see the crib sheet, the Scream crib sheet, and it bothers me sometimes, because there are times where I feel like this movie could, if it had either gone more in the direction of trying to emulate, to paraphrase Sean Cunningham about Friday the 13th, if they had tried harder to emulate what worked with Scream, instead of just kind of like picking things, like maybe it would have worked more to its benefit, or if it would have just kind of gone full off and just been a fucked up movie, like all on its own, Scream template, and like that maybe that would have worked in its favor too.
I do have like kind of like criticisms, I guess. But honestly, they're so minor. Also, for anyone listening, because I just saw Eddie take a swig of this huge jar of something that you're drinking. People have been asking on the YouTube comments, what are you drinking? Can you enlighten us? It's always something different.
It's always something different.
Yeah.
Like sometimes it's Coke Zero, sometimes it's seltzer, sometimes it's Zevia, which just stevia sweetened soda because I don't like a lot of sugar. But this has sugar in it. Actually, this is vitamin water. This is the whatever the red. And people who can't see this are just like, Eddie, what are you talking about? But I'm drinking a red beverage. It looks like blood. That's why I chose it because
how thematic.
It looks cool. Yeah.
Nice.
I'm drinking the blood of my enemies, just like Rebecca Gayheart.
Brenda Bates, no
Yes.
affiliation with Norman.
I am not going to remember any of the characters' names for this movie. Just so you know, I'm calling everybody by their actual names.
Okay, that's fair. I know they all have, or at least like the primary cast, like they all have full names, but I mostly just remember the first. I'll try to remember the full name if I can. But the Brenda Bates is Rebecca Gayheart, and that's the only one that you really need to remember. And before we talked about your weird beverages, I forget where we were going. So I'm just going to take this opportunity to welcome a new Patreon supporter of mine and the podcast. So welcome to Christina Barrera. Happy to have you on board. And
Sorry, I didn't know we were
no,
done.
no, you're good. Applause.
Yay, welcome.
And also, just I wanted to correct my pronunciation from last week. It is I said Cowell O'Higgin, but it's Quayle O'Higgin. So just making sure that I'm getting the names right, because
awesome
names
name.
are very, very Irish.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
I automatically just want to write something with a main character named Quayle now. That's really cool.
These are names, these should be character names in movies.
Totally.
Absolutely. If you ever have writer's block, just join my Patreon. Great segue. Join my Patreon and just get to know some of the other members in the Patreon community there. Because there's a lot of very interesting names. And also, as a Patreon supporter, you will get early access to all of our Cherry Picker episodes. And if you are a Freddy Krueger tier, Freddy, Robert Englund in this movie.
Wow.
I'm terrible. You will get access to our bonus episode, or Patreon episode that we do every month, the Cherry Picker After Dark. That's happening next week. What are we doing, Eddie?
Good question. We're doing... Oh, wait. No, for the After Dark. I know that one. We're doing the one about the girl.
Okay, you don't have to, we're trying to not slow things down here.
Buffy Season 6, baby!
Yes.
I still have to start watching it. Rewatching
Oh, shit.
I've seen it several times.
I'm 1/3 the way through, but yeah.
Okay.
So
I burned through those like nobody's business.
I don't even know how you retain the information, but yes, we're doing Buffy the Vampire Slayer Season 6. We're as we did with the first 5 seasons, we're ranking the episodes separately because we can't agree on shit. And it's a really great deep dive into this series. And we're almost done. We've got one more season after this, so very excited for that. So yes, please support on Patreon. You will get those extra episodes. We've got a back catalog of tons of them, lots of perks. Moving on, do you have a premise for Urban Legend?
I mean, I do, but I only wanted to read it.
Sorry. And thank you to Boy Cried Wolf, our editor.
Oh, thank you!
Yeah. Before I forget.
I could thank him after. No problem. Okay. Because I saw this, and it was written by Amit Kozan, or Amit Kozan. I don't know how to... It's all one word, too, like Edward is Truth. But, I just... Tell me what you think of this.
Okay.
There's a campus killer on the loose who's making urban legends. Like the one about eating Pop Rocks and soda at the same time will make your stomach explode. And the one about a psycho with an axe stepping into the back seat of your car at the gas station when not looking into reality. Urban legend. I don't know. I just read it. I was like, what? Only one of those like actually does kill someone. Like the Pop Rocks is a fake out. I just wondered, like, okay, did you see the whole movie, darling, or did you just watch like the trailer?
Well, I mean,
like,
technically the Pop Rocks urban legend does kind of come back into play for the Michael Rosenbaum kill. Because
yeah, but it's a reach. Because, I mean, anybody who drinks drain cleaner is going to die. Yeah. You don't need to add Pop Rocks to the mix.
I think that, yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, it was kind of like a twofer, because, like, you had the dog in the microwave, followed by the Drano and Pop Rocks. Like, that's the thing. Like, some of the kills in this are reaches. And I think that maybe the reason for that is that when they were doing this initially, they always had it in mind, like, well, we might want to do a sequel, so we don't want to use up everything, because you know, like, we'll have nothing to have material wise for kills in the next movie. So I think that was sort of the impetus to kind of be creative with certain things and just like, and sort of like tenuously link them to urban legends, so they could use things like the kidney heist in the next movie and stuff like that. But at a certain point, you don't really think about the kills per se, because it's more so like I just get so engrossed in, I guess, like the mystery of it all and the slasherness of it all, that I'm not thinking of like, oh, what are they doing for this particular kill and this particular kill? Because I think, like, as we get towards the end, like even the Tara Reid, the Sasha, because that's, I guess, is they're trying to connect to the radio DJ, or the thing on the song, the roller coaster. Love Roller Coaster, because at the beginning you have the scream, which was supposedly a 911 call of someone screaming while they're being murdered. So that's that whole chase scene that ensues at that point. It's just sort of like, oh, she's recreating the urban legend from the song. So there's, you know, at that point, it's just like, you know, we're just getting a good chase scene. I don't really care what is, like, actually connected to the story. And I want to actually tell you that before this movie came out, because I saw it for the first time in the theater, but I remember, when did Scream 2 come out? That was December 97. So this came out September 98. And I was a big fan of, like, urban legend stories and things, like at summer camp, the counselors would tell us stuff. Like, I'm just imagining, like, Friday the 13th part 2 of just like Paul telling the legend of Jason and stuff like that, you know. So we would always hear, like, you know, they would tell these stories and whatnot. So that was kind of, you know, how I've talked about, like, Goosebumps and Are You Afraid of the Dark being, like, gateways into horror, but, like, also just, like, those campfire tales. Those were also kind of my gateway into horror before actually watching a lot of horror movies. And you know, that was still around the time, like, that I was probably, like, just leaving summer camp or not attending summer camp anymore, or just getting to that age. And I remember, like, after Scream 2 came out, like, I just, like, had this idea. And I'm like, there should be, like a slasher movie, like a Scream type movie, where the kills are based on urban legends. And I'm not even joking. And then I don't know if, like, the movie had already been conceptualized or written or filmed at that point, but then it's just like, lo and behold, we get urban legend. And I actually remember, because this was filmed in Toronto, where I was from, where I grew up. And I remember when they did film this, because it was a big deal at the time, and, you know, there's a lot of extras on there, and I, like, friends of mine in school, like, their older siblings were extras on these movies, so I would always hear, like, stories about like Joshua Jackson on the set of Urban Legend from like my friends at school because their older siblings got to be part of the movie. And from everything that like, because I absorbed a lot of the bonus materials on the Blu-ray that I have here, the Scream Factory one, and it seems like this movie was made with a lot of love. I think that everyone involved in the production, really championed this movie. They really believed in it, even if that company, Phoenix something, I think it is, if they hadn't done movies like this before, I think that they were kind of like all in for it, and you can really tell with just like the kind of like the caliber of the people involved in it. And I'm not just talking about your actors like Robert Englund and Brad Dourif and Danielle Harris, but you also have Christopher Young, who came in to score the movie. So I mean, like there's a lot of horror royalty attached to this in front of and behind the camera, and that's another thing that elevates this for me.
I'm really glad you brought up Christopher Young's score, because that was one thing that I had forgotten about, particularly just during the opening credits and the closing credits. It was a wonderful reminder to hear that theme, because it opens with an almost mystical sounding, very kind of like, like anything can happen.
There's sort of like women's voices. It's like almost like this very otherworldly thing. It's like the rain is pouring down on like the river, and just like creating this atmosphere.
And the thing is, I think, because I immediately got excited. Like, I was just kind of like, oh, I don't remember this. It's kind of putting me in the mood. It's setting a tone, and it's kind of like opening up. Like if I were sitting in a dark theater with people on like, opening weekend, like of this movie, and we're all there to see this week's horror movie, the new horror movie. Yeah. I could feel everybody, like leaning in or leaning back because, scared. But the thing is, I didn't think too much about like what I already knew, because I did forget a lot. But it didn't take long for me after we kind of like established what was going on. There were enough diversions for a while, but after a while, it started to make me realize I'm not crazy about the premise in and of itself. I actually one of my overhaul things, and I don't think it was released yet, but one of the things that I kind of would like to see done, maybe another filmmaker do, but people might say they're just copying this movie. Well, I wouldn't mind seeing urban legends manifest in a kind of Final Destination way, like in the sense that there is no one person perpetuating the urban legends happening. What if they just, there's something I'm a little bit more excited about, the prospect of urban legends just manifesting before you, and how do you deal with that? Like what happens when you find yourself like kind of like in the premise for an urban legend? Like, do you immediately extricate yourself from the situation? Do you play along and then turn the tables, like to get your power back? I mean, there's a lot of possibilities there that I would like to see. So immediately, and the only thing that got me there was just like this wonderful kind of, you said, I used your word in my notes, the otherworldly quality of the score, of the music. It was just kind of taking me somewhere fantastical, and the movie didn't really pay off on that for me, unfortunately.
Well, he's an interesting choice, Christopher Young, to score a movie like this, because he's actually had a very colorful career with horror movies. I think probably his best score and like most well known for is Hellraiser, and I was actually getting a little bit of Hellraiser. Like there are a little like similar cues in particular in that opening number as she's driving along the highway. But it's a very like this is very understated, just in terms of like his other scores. I know he did. We talked about Freddy's Revenge, and I really enjoyed that score too. Like it's just I think like the thing is that it's just so unlike not once in that movie do you get the traditional dun, 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 so he does his own thing. I think he also did The Grudge. Like the Sarah Michelle Gellar, and the second one. and I'm forgetting a whole bunch of them, but just off the top of my head. And it does feel weird because it's just more so like how like someone of this stature is doing this, but I think that also kind of like speaks to the production itself, that someone like Christopher Young would come on board and actually like have that, like build that rapport or have that pre-existing, I can't remember if they already knew each other, but with Jamie Blanks, but just like believe in the movie enough to take it seriously and be like, yeah, this is something that I could absolutely score, and he did a beautiful job of it. So I'm very happy that he is involved, because it is another point in this movie's corner. In terms of like what you're suggesting of like a Final Destination type thing, I don't want to speak too much on like where, you know, I would like to see this go. I know that there was a proposed idea for like an urban legend sequel or whatever, and it just I all I know is that it had something to do with like internet stuff, and I don't really know too much more about it other than that. And I don't know. I think that the thing is, like, Rebecca Gayheart is kind of like the MVP, not to like show our hand too soon of the cherry on top, but like we don't need to beat around the bush here. Like, she is the MVP of this movie. Robert Englund himself said, like in interviews for the Blu-ray that they did like probably 5 years ago, he said like she was the best part of this movie, like like bar none. That, I mean, we can probably speak to the second movie. I haven't even seen the third movie, so I don't know anything about that other than I've heard that it's not good. But the second movie, she's in it. She has a cameo at the end. Sorry if it's not even a spoiler because it has nothing to do with the fucking movie. And I always forget that she's in it. Like, anytime I watch the movie, she just kind of shows up, and it's sort of like this meta thing. And she's a nurse or something, and all I can think of is just like, I got really excited, and it's like the movie's over now. It's just like, where was she? I think that, like, because of that, like, any premise, anything moving forward should have Rebecca Gayheart at the forefront. I agree that this is a franchise. Like, if you kind of continued on as a franchise, it could go in any direction. There's so much that they could do with it. But I think that it's integral that she be a part of it and not just a small part of it. I think that she needs to at least have like a Jamie Lee Curtis Halloween, or, you know, I would say Neve Campbell Scream 5, but, like, you know, I would like to see her in more of it than just like 12 minutes.
Sure. I mean, okay, let's just jump to the end, because I remember, like, you know, kind of like watching over my sister and her friend's shoulder, like, you know, just, you know, from the threshold of the room, just kind of like peeking and going like, what are you guys laughing about? And seeing her performance and seeing it out of context, and even seeing it in context at the time, I remember thinking like, it felt, you know, very broad and not rooted in any kind of realism or anything like that. And you know, it's not like the rest of the movie is like, oh, so realistic, but I can appreciate it so much more now, her performance, particularly post reveal, because there is something to be said about watching an actor have fun, and she is so visibly having a ball playing this nutcase and widening her eyes as far as they'll go, her having her hair kinked out to the point of like agitation, and just like delivering lines like, lucky for you, Miss Bang, I got a visual aid, or just like crazy shit like that. Yeah. Well, also, I mean, I love the fact that, like, she's also speaking in a register I didn't know she had at the time. It's kind of like the vocal register I've heard her speak in now, as, like, you know, a grown adult woman. And just a lovely kind of deep, not anywhere near like the open-throated Alicia Witness of it all, but but just very, very kind of dry and very not as much vocal fry as I'm putting on, but you know what I mean. Like there's a wonderful. It's almost like she spends the rest of the movie kind of speaking in a in a really sweet girl voice like this. So then when she's, when she reveals, I can appreciate the details. Like it is a broad performance. She is playing to the back row, but it doesn't take me out of the movie. It does pull me in. I'm just kind of like, oh, good, something to have fun with, something
and
to
you
watch.
Could, I mean, like, people might say, like, look at it and just be like, it's a very campy performance, and like we've already discussed like camp and stuff like that, and I don't see it as campy. I do see it as very nuanced. I see it as like, this is probably the best performance of her career, at least that I can think of. It's just this is the movie that when people mention Rebecca Gayheart, I'm just like, oh my gosh, she's fabulous in that end reveal scene. And the thing is, like, if you look, like, compare her motive per se, or just like what her backstory is to like any of the Scream killers, like it's kind of like the whole thing is kind of like, oh, that's what it is. And I don't want this to sound like a criticism of the writing, because I think that the writer, whose name escapes me at the moment, but I do want to give him his dues. But like it's it's just kind of like one of those like oh, by the way, why is she doing this sort of thing? And I think that her performance kind of transcends that, because I don't even know if like specifically, like I would love to find out that like she made up that whole story. She didn't even have like a fiance or whatever. She's just like literally crazy and just goes around to like school after school with like a new backstory, just to like kill people. But
I would prefer that, actually, because I do have to say the reveal of her motive and everything like that felt like a reach. If we're talking about things feeling like a reach in this movie, that definitely felt like, okay, that's a tall order on the audience's part for me to believe. Like, I almost felt like they should have gone with like blood relations before they went with like, my would-be husband. Although, wouldn't it be great if in Urban Legend, instead of like just having her in a bit at the end, if she was the heavy, the way they planted it, like, even though I said how kind of like seduced I was by the idea of mysticism being introduced and it being more Final Destination, and from the onset, at the end of the movie, when all those random kids, how many years later is it that they're talking? In the epilogue?
That's the beauty of it. You don't really, it's like, did the story actually happen? Did it happen that way? It's right. I don't look at that ending as it kind of being canon, or like for the whole movie being canon. I see it more of just like that's just it could be several different things. That's what the legend is. Yeah, it could be several different things. She just goes to from school to school, killing new people, and it's sort of like the story. So in that regard, if they're all sitting there at the end, they're like, that didn't happen, and she says, well, actually, let me tell you how it really happened. So it's just like that opens the possibility that like it wasn't that reach of like her fiance was killed by Alicia Witt and her friend, that it's just like she's just literally this psychopath who's become this larger than life legend, who's just like always changing in that way. Just like
eavesdropping on people, like her ears prick up whenever people mention my legend, like, well,
me?
Let me
like
tell
you're talking
you
about
the real story. I love it. But I mean, that's why they planted a seed. Or I'm going to mix my metaphors, but they planted a seed that should have paid off in the sequel. There is no way there should have ever been a sequel greenlit that doesn't have her as the star, or at least the star heavy, like the villain proper of the movie.
I think the problem with Urban Legend's final cut, the second movie, is that was released in 2000, so we're still kind of riding the Scream wave at that point. And I think that the reason why Scream works is because of Neve Campbell and Courtney Cox and David Arquette. The killer is always someone different. And Wes Craven, and everyone else that's consistent within that trilogy.
The perfect storm.
Of just coming back, but it's the story. It's just the story of these characters that we know over and over again, and it's just like you're having a sequel, and they're using like the idea, like the murder mystery, like there's a killer, but now there's like a new school and a new group of people, and it's like neither of them are Alicia Witt or Jared Leto. The killer is not Rebecca Gayheart. It's like there's no consistency in terms of character, but you're taking the story, and I mean there is Loretta Devine, and we'll talk a lot about her, but like it's still like what they did in the sequel was just very kind of like of like what the studios were doing at the time, where just like, well, this worked when we did it here and it worked in Scream, so we'll just do the same thing without actually thinking of what were the key ingredients that made those movies so great. And I would argue that Jamie Blanks, because he didn't return for the second one on at least a directing capacity. I don't know if he was like a producer or something. Silvio Horta was the writer on the first movie, and he did not, as far as I know, do the second one. But it's that's kind of like I think the reason why it failed. But the studio was like, well, we have to get Rebecca Gayheart in there somehow, and it just kind of shoehorned her in at the end, because I feel like the early 2000s were like the start of the button, as you call it, or just like the post credit, even though like the credits hadn't started. I guess it was like the mid credits where it's just like, oh, that's where we'll put things, because like Wild Things had its mid credits, like the extra scenes and stuff, that it's just like, oh, that's a fun place to put these things. It's like little Easter eggs for our audience, but it's like at that point, like they're already out of their seats and like leaving the theater. And now it's become what it is today, where it's just like you have to stay through the credits to see the secret scene or whatever. So it was almost like the origins of that, of what they were trying to do, and it's sad that she was just relegated to that scene, because I agree she definitely needs to be at the forefront, or just at least a much bigger presence. And in terms of the third one, Bloody Mary, I think that actually is supernatural from what I understand. So perhaps your Final Destination,
I doubt it.
Thing,
I doubt I'll enjoy it, but
maybe that's not the route to go down.
I'll watch it though. I'll watch it and get back to you. But can I tell you though, like the for a while there, like with the opening, like the fact that like there wasn't any kind of like immediate villain introduced per se, and you can have a lot of opinions of it. I would never compare the opening for Urban Legends to the opening for the first Scream movie, but in the way of nuance and in the way of artistry and everything like that. But it was a hook. I thought it worked. I mean, to start, Natasha Gregson Wagner, who plays I forget the character's name. They say
Michelle
it over and over again.
Mancini.
Mancini.
Yeah.
I should remember it because
Michael
Thomas
Mancini.
Calabro's little sister from Melrose Place.
No, that was
she's
Jennifer.
Not, but
that
she should be.
That was Alyssa Milano.
Yeah.
But,
well, she's the sister they don't know about, or the one they don't even talk about.
Yeah.
She's Michelle.
Yeah.
But Natasha Gregson Wagner, who plays her, not with all due respect, has never been my favorite actress in anything I've seen her in. I remember there was a movie she was in I really liked, directed by Larry Clark back in the day, called Another Day in Paradise, that actually has, can't remember the actor's name, but the one who plays Connor in Angel. The two of them are love interests.
Vincent... Kartheiser?
Kartheiser, yes, him.
Yeah.
The two of them play kind of like a would-be teenage Bonnie and Clyde, like a willing, let's be the next Bonnie and Clyde kind of, young people. But, and I mean, I can see her trying. Like, everything I've seen her in, like, I can see her trying. But the problem is also, like, she bears a resemblance to her infamous mother, Natalie Wood. Even in this movie, I was looking at her. It was a wonderful kind of way to pass the time while I'm watching the opening scene. If I wasn't particularly hooked into the action, I could just look at her face and go, her jawline and just her eye, from the eyebrows up, like, she's just kind of, got that Natalie Wood framework going on in her face. Good for her. But anyway, and I think she's a great actress. Natasha Gregson Wagner, not so much, but I see her punching. But I even with that, like, there were things in the opening scene, little details, like the fact that she had to reach, and I don't even know that they were mindful of this because it was all just the way we rolled back then, but the way she wants to play a particular audio cassette, on her stereo in the car. So she's reaching behind the passenger seat to try and get her little, cassette wallet case or whatever and pull one out so she can, play the music she wants to play. And I'm just kind of like, oh my gosh, we used to do that. Like that. Oh, I don't know. Like, just wonderful little things. And then, of course, Brad Dourif, which my heart, I'm just sitting there. And now he's doing a stutter again. And I love, Brad Dourif did the greatest stutter I've ever seen recorded in cinema ever in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. That was the year that he was nominated for an Oscar and should have won. But to see him reprising his stutter and just to see him on screen and the love in my heart and to know, I remembered the twist of, like, he's this ominous figure, but that, like, he's really trying to help her as per the urban legend. And I thought he did such a good job, and I thought her reaction to him worked. I was just kind of like, oh my gosh, I'm so into this, and and my sympathies were with him from the beginning. So when the reveal, revealed itself again, I was just like, that poor guy. All he was trying to do was the right thing, and here he's got this young girl. Granted, a little socially inept. He could have gone about it maybe. If he didn't work in a remote gas station in the middle of nowhere and have next to no human contact and, innately a kind of threatening presence to every, 90-pound girl who's of college age and everything like that, and like locking doors, and don't do that. Don't lock girls in places. It's not going to go well for anybody. But there is on the face of all of that, there's like this innocence to him that I feel really, really bad for him, because I feel like even though she got killed, I feel like he got screwed the most out of that deal. Like,
until
he's got a broken...
Until everything is all revealed in the end, and then I'm sure he was released. But I agree. I mean, it's like comparing apples and oranges to
Right.
have anything like against the opening for Scream or even the opening for Scream 2. I mean,
Sure.
I definitely prefer the opening of this to, some of the newer Scream openings. But I think that it's different in a way because it's not so much about the characters. And that's the thing, like a lot of the characters in this movie are not all that likable. Or even relatable or anything. I think it's just more so about the storytelling and the legends of it all, and just like the someone in the back seat of it all. Because I think that if the attempt was to make like a Drew Barrymore opening, I think that Jamie Blanks would have been more mindful. I think the script would have been more mindful of like this character, because I don't think that she's a particularly likable character in herself. Like, we don't really get a whole lot with her, but then there is the moment when she has that first interaction with Brad Dourif's character, and she doesn't want to open the window. She doesn't want to get wet. She doesn't want to get her, her hair wet or anything. She just like slips the card through the crack, and she closes it, and she says to herself, "Freak show," and it's like, that's not like, if you want to, make your audience like empathize with this character or feel scared for them, you're not going to do something like that. Like at that point, I'm just like, I don't care if she lives or dies. And I don't think that that's a detriment to the opening scene at all, because I'm watching this and I'm just seeing like the cinematography in this movie is also like very incredible. And like there's these shots like when she gets out of the van because she has to go inside, we've got this like overhead shot that just kind of like comes down from this crane as they're like running inside as this rain is pouring. Like the camera movement is always very dynamic. Nothing is just still or frozen in one stationary position. We're always moving, and it just like it makes the scene feel very alive. That's why I say like I'm not really with the characters in this moment. I'm just more so waiting for the inevitable, because I mean, we know what this movie is. We know, like, if you've seen the trailer, that's highlighted in the trailer, this kill in particular. Even before that, when the moment you mentioned where she's reaching into the back seat, we already see the killer. We already see the parka laying down there, so we know that there's danger. I mean, it's a very quick moment, and if you're not looking for it, you might miss it. But on repeat viewings, you definitely see it. That, you know, in that regard of just like, you know, trying to craft like a Casey Becker like scene where the stakes are really high and you actually feel the emotion of the scene when her parents come home and she's trying to call out to them for help, and there's nothing that they can do. They're not even cognizant of it while she's being murdered right there on the front porch. Like, it's a completely different scenario as to what they're doing here.
Yeah. You know whose death I actually found the most empathetic, where I was like, this is horrific, because I feel like the very nature of it is like, just on its face, like there's a cachet.
Can I guess before you say?
Yeah, which one?
Are you going to say Tosh, the roommate?
Yeah, Danielle Harris.
Yeah.
That one... Because maybe I had more of a grasp of these urban legends when I was like closer to the age of like the characters, you know, going through the movie, because I think it was the same age as most of the actors at the time that they were playing these, you know, college kids. But number one, there's the trope of like kind of, you know, that's revisited a lot throughout, particularly the 90s, when goth kids kind of like really started to filter into teen movies, and rarely were ever depicted either humorous without being the butt of the joke or in any kind of sympathetic way. And I feel like in spite of Danielle Harris's commitment to the character, you know, like, she's made to be kind of unpleasant for the bulk of the movie, and still I found myself sympathizing with her. And it didn't even need to be because she's Danielle Harris, although that doesn't hurt. But it's also just like the fact that I wouldn't want anyone to be put in that kind of position, because it's beyond violating. It is chilling, because it's also the thing, I wouldn't want to be in Danielle Harris's place. I also wouldn't want to be in Alicia Witt's place. Like, and I wouldn't want to be in the killer's place either. Like, there is no win position in that room as the scene plays out. It is just a horrible occurrence in an enclosed space, that when Alicia Witt has the discovery the next day, it almost kind of undercuts it, because it brings me back to scratching my head going, so was that an urban legend about a roommate getting killed, but the other roommate thought that she was having sex the whole time, and then woke up the next morning and saw aren't you glad you didn't turn on the lights, or whatever. Like, if it is, it went right out of my memory. I was just, I'm sure it is. But there's an urban legend about it's typically involves a roommate, and it's a scenario where the one roommate comes home and doesn't turn on the light, but hears noise and just thinks it's like normal, or whether it's like sex or what have you, but just sort of like goes about their own business. And then the next day, I don't know if it's like, aren't you glad you didn't turn off the lights, or just like you should have turned on the lights, or, you know, something like that. But it is a proper urban legend. Yeah. Okay.
I think
not as prevalent, not as prevalent as the kidney one, but yeah.
And I agree with you just in terms of like everything that you're saying about like how I actually do feel bad for her, more so than the other characters. And it's ironic because Tosh is presented as this very like standoffish person. I think she's misunderstood. Miserable. I kind of have this like headcanon of just like the two of them as roommates together, because I feel that they probably have had good times, you know. Well, the way that she described Tosh is like she was very manic depressant, so I imagine that there was probably like a lot of good moments and there was a lot of bad moments, like in their time together, and it just happened to be a bad week. And, you know, she was going through shit, and there was the whole thing of like her, it presents this sort of like cry wolf scenario, because she came in, turned on the lights, saw her having sex, And
Yeah.
then it was like, the next day's story about what happened. And she's like, yeah, well, don't let it happen again. That it kind of created this, like, she did it to herself in that way of, if had she just been like, whatever, no big deal, it happens,
It's your room too.
Yeah,
like actually being a good roommate.
yeah, that next time that she came in and it was Brenda in there like strangling her, that Natalie would have turned on the lights and then seen everything, because it's just like, oh, she said it's okay if I need to navigate my way through the room, like.
Sure.
And in that moment, I think that the thing that like really clinches it is that she's putting her headphones on, and Tasha's just like, no, as her like mouth is being covered, that it's just like she actually was crying for help to her roommate in that last moment. I think it does. I definitely feel more empathy for her than say like someone like Sasha, played by Tara Reid, who's not like an unlikable character.
God.
I think that she has a lot more qualities, but like her death scene where she's just like, please, I don't want to die. I'm just like, just kill her already. Like.
Okay, well.
Like, well, we don't have to get to that just quite yet, but no, I definitely agree with everything that you're saying, and I wish that her.
Okay.
I mean, I didn't even realize that was Danielle Harris the first time I had seen it, because I'd already been familiar with Halloween 4 and 5, and obviously she's like 10 years older in this, so I didn't catch that right away. I actually like. Friends at school have just been like, oh, that's Jamie Lloyd from the Halloween movies. And I'd like to say like it would have been nice to have more of her in the movie, but at the same time, like I liked her role. I think that like for what it was, for like how little that she was there, it was very impactful. She did do a lot with it, and like we said, like her death was one of the more effective ones of the movie. So I'm perfectly happy. I mean, I just wish maybe she should have got like higher billing, if anything.
Well, and I mean, I'm with you with the more screen time. Higher billing is great,
Yeah.
but I mean that's another thing. Okay, like it's a big thing. So let's just attack it. For me, with this movie, I had a hard time following it, and I tried. Just in terms of the histories of any given set of friends throughout the movie, it was seemed to be laid out like a kind of, well, we're all friends, kind of.
Yeah.
And the only context we really get, and we don't even really get to feel anything for it, is between Michelle Mancini and our dear Alicia Witt, Natalie. The two of them, like obviously, like because it's discussed, it's a crucial point of exposition as to like I guess why this, or is it crucial though? I mean, like it's why it matters to her, why she's kind of like more upset about it than everybody else, because everybody else seems to be like joking about it repeatedly and not feeling anything, not even just kind of being like, "Are you okay?" And that's another thing where I'm watching and I'm just kind of like, I miss the touch of Wes Craven, or a Wes Craven like director who would look at that and say, well, there's nothing to connect to here. Like, who are these characters? Who are who are the ones who are actually really, really close friends? Like, who is Natalie's best friend? Because if we go off of like the way it's introduced, it appears like it might be Rebecca Gayheart. But then as it progresses, Tara Reid starts to connect with her kind of randomly, and I'm thinking like, oh, I didn't even know they were like friends that way. I thought they were just like in the group together. So Tara Reid's like actually like a friend of her? Well then wait, I'm so confused. I had a hard time trying to figure out what, and the thing is, like, I watch a movie like Scream and I get any number of characters, and even the sequels, just kind of like introduced to me, and I feel like, okay, I know who you are, I know how you feel about each other. Ooh, didn't know that. Like, I'm getting vital information and I'm retaining it, and I didn't feel like I got that. Maybe and you know me, I'm the king of headcanon.
Yeah.
Or the queen, whatever you want. So I just felt like the movie didn't have my back.
I absolutely felt the friendships of like the three female characters.
Okay.
And I definitely like got that Rebecca Gayheart was Brenda was Natalie's best friend. Like, that was very evident to me. And I also got there was a friendship that it was just like this friend group, and people, they're all in it together. And as you're talking about Tara Reid just kind of like popping in and out, I actually like that because it just reminded us that like you have other people in the cast, they can serve this purpose as well. You don't have to have this like an overexposure. Like if it was Rebecca Gayheart that showed up in the library, that might have been like too much of her. And that might have been like, why is she there? Why, is maybe she's the killer? That I liked that even if it didn't make a lot of sense, even though I do think that it does make sense with the three, because I think that they all had like really good chemistry together. Uh-huh. But when Joshua Jackson shows up in Natalie's dorm room, and I don't even remember, he like asked her if she wanted to come over because they were like doing something to the dog, like some weird like frat thing.
Oh, right.
And she was just like, what? Like Hootie, that's the dog's name. And she's just like, I just want to be alone. And then that's when he was like, oh, well, like, do you want to talk or whatever? And that felt weird to me. It's just like, I mean, we know that it was already established that they knew each other because they have class together. And Parker, who is the Michael Rosenbaum character, like he was in the coffee shop when they were all like talking earlier. Yeah. So really the only outlier is Paul, Jared Leto's character, who's kind of like, I mean, I don't even want to say it because it's such a rude comparison. He's kind of like the Gale Weathers of this. He's like the reporter, but yeah, not. But yeah, he's like the outlier of this group. But it's still, I get that, like, okay, Sasha is with Parker, but like, why, like, Damon, is the Joshua Jackson character. Yeah. He's kind of like, he just has this freedom to like come over to her room and just like hang out. I didn't get that relationship from them at all, especially considering that the scene where we meet him prior to that, or not before the classroom, when he kind of pranks them when they're outside that dorm at night. They're just kind of like, what a doofus, like it was a lot of it seemed very forced, but it did still create like good moments and set pieces, because what followed from that was his death scene, which happened really early on.
So Joshua Jackson, like we have to talk about it. I think Joshua Jackson is a fucking natural. He's never in anything enough as far as I'm concerned. Like, we've already covered Scream 2 and Cruel Intentions. He's underused in both of those. And I want him in more. And I actually had an epiphany while I was watching this movie. I was thinking, if Joshua Jackson had been cast as Mickey, I think Scream 2 would be higher in my rankings than it is.
Oh, wow. I completely disagree. I cannot.
I know, but that's how much I love watching him work. Yeah. And also, even though he's playing a fucking douche for the most part, like in this movie, and he still manages to find a way to make himself watchable to us, because he's playing all the vital douchey parts of the douche. He's not like pretending this guy isn't a douche, but he's also playing, kind of like a little boy mentality of just kind of like, I'm going to make up whatever I have to try and get what I want because sex feels good. I mean, but I laughed out loud when he was sitting in the car with Alicia Witt talking about how his girlfriend died of a syndrome. And just the look on her face in reaction as she's just kind of breaking it down, like, because she's buying it up until then when he says, my girlfriend died. And she's like, oh my God. And then he's just kind of like, yeah, of a syndrome. And she's just like, uh-oh. Wait, that doesn't...
Well, I think she says, oh, she did?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, like just kind of like playing along with it.
Something like that. And then once, like, all of his cards are on the table, no thanks to him. I love that, like, he goes in for a kiss and she just full on punches him in the face and just start the car right now. I was laughing out loud, literally laughing my ass off. I rewound it so I could see it again that moment. Yeah. And
the only thing that I don't about that scene, which I feel like it was there, I think at the time, it was probably like a good laugh, and now like people watch it and they're just like, what does that even mean? And it's when he starts the car, when he's having like the issues, and I like that because it's sort of setting up the car troubles later on. But then the fact that the Dawson's Creek theme song comes on, and it's like this wink at the audience, and I'm just like, oh, that's pretty cringe. That's something that did not age well, and I wish that hadn't been there. But I mean, it's such a minor gripe because I feel like once it happens, you forget about it immediately.
I was just kind of like, oh, it's because he was in that thing.
Yeah.
All right. And then the scene kept going.
Yeah, but I mean, like, just in terms of like the kill itself, and this is another thing where I was watching the documentaries on the Blu-ray, and they had everyone talking, and Christopher Young was talking about scoring this particular scene because the scene itself, it kind of like jumps back and forth between the action of like her sitting in the car and then him struggling with a killer, and it just like when it's on her, it's just like the music has to stop. So it's just like he was just recounting how he had to do this kind of like back and forth of just the score of just like highs and then lows and then highs and lows.
So
and
cool.
And what I love especially about that, like the initial part of that kill, is that I was getting Friday the 13th Part 2 when Jason, although this was around the tree, when he Garrett's Crazy Ralph.
Crazy Ralph, yeah.
Because it's sort of the same, well, like she jumps up behind him and, you know, has out of nowhere, just like, where did she even come from? And throws the rope around his neck. Like, it's just such a great moment. And it's, again, that's another where you're like in the woods peeing, you don't know what's around you. Like, it's a very vulnerable position. But I think like, you know, even if some of the kills, and this one obviously is linked to an urban legend, but even if they're not, like, I feel like all of the death scenes in this are so well executed and edited that, again, like, I can forget that, like, this doesn't even really have a connection to an urban legend, or it's just like very tenuously connected, and it still works. Like, that's what I'm talking about with all of these. Like, that's just the level of production that was brought to this, which is why I, you know, still think this is better than Valentine.
I also got nervous. You know, as far as the scares, I will give you that. Like, the scares when they are working in this movie, I think are far more effective than the ones in Valentine. I don't think I'm scared of anything in Valentine, but tonally,
both movies are very
sense.
fun. That's that, and probably Valentine is more fun. But they're both like, you know, both of them deserve reevaluation for sure. And I think
go on.
Yeah. No, I was just gonna say because I think that Jamie Blanks, like, I wish that he had a third movie, you know, just like to have that kind of like his, like the Jamie Blanks trilogy of just like slasher movies of just like, you know, he had urban legend, and all of them are so like, or both of them are so like thematic in their own way. It's just like you have one that is about like urban legend killings, the other is Valentine's themed. Like, if he had just one more, I feel like that would have been the perfect trifecta of just like he's the guy.
Movie.
Yeah.
I would definitely go see that movie. That would be fun. Themed kills.
Yeah.
But I do have to say, like, it was another kind of like audio cassette moment for me, just like seeing the way she had to wind the window up when the killer was finally going after her, and I was like, "Aw!" in the midst of all this tension. But then the tension came right back to me. I got really, really scared I flinched. I literally flinched when the killer kicked in the windshield on Alicia Witt, and I could have sworn, like, it was a real quick cut. And it looked to me like, oh, did she get glass in her face? Because that is something, I don't want glass anywhere near here. Like, you know, like drinking blood. Okay, that's one thing out of a mason jar. I love that. But in my face, no. And so I thought that was like terribly effective. I was just kind of like, okay, that was scary enough. I need to take a note. And
there's a lot of No, just finish your thought. That's cool.
I did. Wow.
Okay, no, I was gonna say there's a lot of broken glass in this movie, because you have the moment that you just spoke about. You have Alicia Witt when she is like slamming that chair or whatever against the window in the pool area. You also have when Tara Reid is like first attacked when the axe swings through the window. There's probably more. I mean, Brenda goes flying out the windshield at the end of the movie. There's a lot of, and also the axe kill at the beginning. I'm pretty sure that broke through. And it's almost like what we were talking about, the Friday the 13th marketing, or how like the glass breaks or whatever it was. But because like the poster for the movie is sort of like the original poster. It's got that like shattered glass effect. Like if you can see on the screen here as I hold up the Blu-ray. So no, you just made me think of that. It's really cool. It contextualizes the key art for the movie.
I have so many notes. I'm just wondering like what to.
Well, I wanted to say because we already kind of like talked about Joshua Jackson, because I feel like we're kind of going through the movie sequentially at this point. Like we've jumped around a little bit, but another thing that I really appreciate about Rebecca Gayheart's performance and just as Brenda, because I mean, like, there's movies like this, like, you know, like slasher movies that you watch once and it's just like, okay, cool. And I think that part of like the rewatchability factor of this movie is watching her, like you already kind of spoke to it when she's like, you know, playing like the really like the girly best friend.
Yeah.
And there's like moments where just like you're watching her and I just like, I can see it in her performance where it's just like, she's having so much fun, like gaslighting this character and just fucking with these people. And there's one moment in particular, and it's the one with Joshua Jackson where they're out, where he pranks them because they're doing the Bloody Mary thing. And Rebecca Gayheart screams with Natalie. And I'm just thinking, like, what is going through her mind right now? Like, was she genuinely scared, but did she have to have a moment where it's just like, why am I scared? I'm the killer, you know? Like,
I think she had to have quite a few of those moments where just to kind of like get the suspicion off of her. I did want to ask you, like, that scene in the pool when Alicia Witt sees the parka girl, you know, going up to Rebecca Gayheart in the swimming pool. Do you think that Rebecca Gayheart hired that girl to come in a parka just to like gaslight her friend Alicia Witt?
Never thought about that, but now that you have mentioned it, absolutely, that is now headcanon for me. That's what I wish that they did, like the Wild Things, like end credits, and you see Brenda, and she's just like goes to this girl, and she's just like, "Here's $50, just wear this parka." And it was the same one, because everyone on this fucking campus has the same parka, but whatever. It's just like, here's this parka, just come in at this. Like she called Natalie or beeped her or whatever they had back then.
Yes.
And was just like, meet me at the pool at 4:00 or whatever. And yeah, absolutely, that is my new headcanon. That Brenda.
Well, good. I'm glad we could reach that. I also just wanted to ask you, like, given I'm jumping back a little bit, but when Robert Englund does the whole thing like urban legends or whatever, I mean, I don't think he says that line, but he may as well have. I was just wondering, what the fuck is this class they're taking? Like, is he teaching Urban Legends 101, or do they ever like talk about it? I think it was just
like American folklore.
Okay.
Or some sort of like history studies, but it was just like they were doing like Urban Legend Week. Like I think thinking of it like in Candyman when you find out that her husband or whatever is like, but this is like Urban Legend Week. Like I always like teach this in the curriculum. Like you should know that. Or, you know, I can't jeopardize these kids' educations just so you can finish your thesis, or you know. So I think it was just like it just so happened to coincide with like when they were doing this, and that's another thing. Maybe like Brenda was planning that. Like she knew what the curriculum was, and she's like, I'm gonna wait until this week. Maybe it was even the anniversary of the supposed fiance's killing or whatever. That it's just like all these things lined up. Who knows?
Yeah.
Because it's just like that's the fun in it. That's the fun with the characters, that your imagination can run wild, because I feel that the way that the movie ends does kind of present that ambiguity that, you know, anything could be true with this, because that's the nature of urban legends. It's just like a story that might not be true, but just because it's been passed through so many mouths and ears that it like eventually kind of becomes a real thing. So I think that's if anything, that's what should be explored more in this franchise, is just like the concept of that with her at the forefront. But it's there's so much like again, like just going backwards, like just like kind of like doing that deconstruction of the character in the movie, that you can like come up with all sorts of like headcanons for like what was part of her plan, like what did she do, like it seems so intricate. Like there's moments like later on at the party when because she supposedly has this thing for Paul, which I think would be funny if we find out that she wasn't even interested in him. She was just sort of like doing it again to like make Natalie feel bad, when she's just like, well, you don't waste any time, do you, Natalie? And then throws the beers at her, goes running out the house, and the last thing we see, she starts crying. She sits down on the steps, and what I imagine is like the camera cut, and what I imagine is was it Joan Cusack in the Addams Family Values?
Yeah.
When she's in the car and just like crying and then starts laughing maniacally.
Oh yeah.
That's
Officer, my husband was in that house.
Yeah.
I love that.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
No, that is what Brenda did right after that moment, with just the scene cut. And we didn't see, but she was just sitting there laughing hysterically, because it's just like, I didn't even plan for that to happen. She's just lining up.
You know, there are a lot of like little moments that I appreciated, like particularly the actors, and we still haven't even named all of, or really truly addressed all of the performances that I love here. But one I wanted to just call attention to, Robert Englund. It was such a minor thing, and it was in a master shot, so it didn't even require. I mean, you know, for a lazy actor, it doesn't require a performance because it's just a master. But it was in the shot where Joshua Jackson goes up and like takes the Pop Rocks and drinks the soda and starts to convulse, and he falls down, and it's a very, very distant shot from like the back of the room, and all I saw was Robert Englund watching him fall, and everybody gets up to like lean in, and he walks the fuck away. And I love the fact that his character, he made a decision. This is a smart teacher. He's not going to freak out because he knows this shit. He knows that this little shitty student of his is just playing a prank, and it's got to play out. He's just got to let all the students get nervous. He's got to let him reveal it, and then he's got to like, you know, give him demerits or whatever you do in that college, you know, to your students.
Yeah.
I really
Damon,
appreciate it.
I think he even like grabbed onto him as he was like fake collapsing, and he kind of like pulled back. It's just like, don't touch me.
It's like, oh no, oh god, like which is very exactly how you should respond when, you know your student is a shithead.
Professor Wexler. Is the character's name. And he was great. I mean, I would have liked a little bit more from him, actually. Like just maybe like one scene extra with him, because he's the movie's red herring. And this is another thing I commend the writing and the production for, because he's a red herring who is kept around until late into the movie. And as we find out, that's who Brenda is planning to frame. Of just like, he snapped because it was the anniversary of the Stanley Hall massacre. And it's just like, great. Like, that's such a simple way to, you know, it's just like, it shows us that our killers are smart and are being written smartly. And I love that. And Robert Englund, like, playing that red herring type was perfect in the role, and he did such a good job of it. I love that he even had like a Freddy Krueger moment, and it's when they break into the office, and he's like hiding behind the door, and they close it, and he's just like, I think he says like, looking for something, or like, can I help you find something? Just like very like Freddy Krueger.
I had one note, which is just a very self-satisfied, to make another Addams Family Values reference. Just imagine Angelica Houston's expression in any frame of that movie. I just have a smile, and then Robert Englund as Red Herring. Like it's perfection. Yeah. Like, you cast the perfect guy to be your Red Herring. But I also, I there were other things like just sprinkled throughout. One thing in particular that's standing out to me now is when Alicia Witt finds out that Natasha Gregson Wagner was decapitated, and I think it's right after, but it might be, I don't know where it is, but it's pretty soon after where she just kind of like starts to hear the sounds of pep rally past, like this, boom, ba, rah, rah. And I'm just like, wow, movie, did we need that? Like, you've got a very capable actress in Alicia Witt. I think we know that she's remembering her friend without like the echoes of her adolescence and such. I don't know. Like, I mean, in subsequent viewings, I may come to really appreciate that because I'm laughing just.
I'm thinking now, maybe I'm just pushing headcanon at this point, but I'm thinking like Scream 3 Roman with like Maureen Prescott's voice when Sydney's like in the stab house, or even like at the end when it's just like, I was so pretty, or whatever. Rebecca, we find out that Rebecca Gayheart is like right outside the dorm room, and she has like a tape of just like pep rally noises, and she's playing it. Wasn't it fucking? I think it was like Straight Jacket with Joan Crawford, because that was like, as we find out, that was like what the real killer was doing to kind of gaslight her, because it was like playing something or other. That's what I remember.
There was a song, like a trigger song.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome.
Just Brenda like outside the door, just like meticulously like playing this pep rally thing. That's my new headcanon. It's just Brenda was doing all sorts of crazy shit in this movie.
Yeah, no, but also like Natalie was put through the ringer. But okay, this is another thing. Like, this might sound like a nitpick, but again, we brought it up when we discussed the first Scream about Wes Craven's attention to detail with Nev's character, to the point where she's packing the clothes that she's going to wear the next day at school in the scene that while she's packing for her sleepover at Tatum's, which happens, and she does go to school and she does wear those clothes, and that just that alone, like, it's wonderful. I felt kind of the antithesis of that after Danielle Harris's kill, even though it was a very effective sequence. Afterwards, Alicia Witt wakes up like fresh as a daisy with her hair still like freshly curled. Like, she's got, she's still got like last night's makeup. She's obviously got like, something she did to her eyelashes, and her hair looks like she just finished with the curling iron and just brushed it out and blow dried it just to kind of tease it a little bit, and then just laid down like Sleeping Beauty, and then for the rest of the day is walking around looking like that, and I'm just kind of like, wow, your hair held up beautifully. And I just kept thinking, like, would she be? I couldn't stop thinking about it, so I didn't pay much attention to like the scene that followed between her and Jared Leto, but I'm sure I didn't miss much. But just the fact that, like, I kept thinking, like, either there should have been a decision made that she would have been too upset to tease her hair that much, or what if teasing her hair that much was a distraction and we get like an actual sequence of her just sitting there trying to function, like looking herself in the mirror and kind of like almost like, do I go to class today? Like, what am I supposed to? Okay, you know what? I've made up my, and not audibly, just playing it, wordlessly, and just kind of see her make the decision, you know what, I'm going to curl my hair, and just like watch her with the curling iron and just watch her kind of like fighting, emotion to try and like, I mean, if you're going to camp it up, like, let's go full throttle, But I don't, I just wanted to be more on the inside of their experiences.
Yeah, I don't get the camp from this. And I mean, I understand what you're saying. I just think that, hindsight is 20/20 in this scenario, and it's just like, I think that Alicia Witt is great in this. I think that. Yeah. I mean, I also think that Jared Leto is good.
Leto, yeah.
I don't like them together. I think that they have no chemistry.
I think kiss comes out of nowhere. When they kiss each other, I'm like, what the fuck are you two doing?
They're a very boring couple. Yeah. And I think that's really like my biggest criticism with the movie is just them together in this scenario, because it does feel forced, and that what you're talking about in those scenes, that sort of like starts a series of like second act kind of just like going around in circles, because there's about 3 scenes that are the exact same thing between them, and it's just like there's like little like expo dumps here just to like get from one scene to the next, but it's like one of those could have been easily excised from the movie. And not that this has like pacing issues or anything, but it's because it starts with like her kind of like walking away down like the quad or whatever, and he follows her and they have a conversation there, and then the next scene they're continuing that conversation in his editor's office. And then it goes to a scene where they're in the archives or whatever, because they're looking for the yearbook from the year of the murder, and that's where the janitor is. Love that guy, by the way. We've talked about him. He was in Wrong Turn. Julian Richings, who I met once, but he was great in the movie. One of my favorite moments is between him and Reese, Loretta Devine, when he like kind of walks through the frame when she's kind of doing her investigation, and she's just like, holy hell, like, yeah, I could have had a heart attack. He's just very like nonchalantly monotone, boo. Such a great moment. But anyway, I'm getting off track. But it's that scene, and then he's like, go ask Wexler. And it's like that series of scenes, it just like, it really slowed the pace down. And I don't know if this is like, because this is very similar to a beat in Valentine, because there's a section of that movie, and we talked about it, it's right in the middle, where it felt like there's a series of like 4 scenes or so, which are like almost the same thing over and it's like it's either Marley Shelton's character on dates with David Boreanaz, and then they're like talking to the detective, and it kind of just jumps back and forth, and there's not a lot of differentiation between them other than like we're getting new exposition. There is the bit in the police station with Denise Richards when he like comes on to her, and it's just like, oh, that's such a great moment for her. But other than that, it's just like there's not really. It's like the movie in both instances with both movies slows down. So I don't know if that's just like more just like the storytelling of just sort of like the mid-movie kind of like we're just hanging out with these characters. And I think it works better in Valentine because I think even though some of those characters aren't likable, I still enjoy hanging out with them more than I enjoy hanging out with Natalie and Paul here. But I do. I think that the scene where they break into Wexler's office is wonderful. Like, I love that, and I love the bit of them like hiding in that back room, and that if there is any chemistry between them, it's not even like a romantic sense, but it's just sort of like the criminal aspect of like what they're doing, and that moment where they're just kind of like, okay, let's just wait till he's gone. And then go out there. That I loved. But everything else with them, because then we get the fucking stuff with the dean. It's just like, you have a history, and you're fired from the paper. And then Jared has his moment when they're walking out, and he's just like, I just don't know any. It's like the Jennifer Love Hewitt, like, what are you waiting for? Except with him, it's just like, I don't know if I believe it. I don't know if I ever believed it, or whatever the fuck he says.
Well, I mean, okay. I just remember laughing out loud at that one line that Jared Leto says to Alicia Witt. I forget exactly when. It's after Dean Adams, basically, like, that's the only character's name I remember in this movie. Yeah. But Dean Adams sits there and just basically is assured that Michelle Mancini died of a suicide, clearly. Or no, not Michelle.
No, she was murdered by
Danielle Harris.
Yeah,
Danielle Harris. Yeah. It's clear it was a suicide, and she's like, what? And Alicia Witt, love her. But then he's just kind of like, if you don't know, I don't know what's going on here, but if you want, we can talk off the record. Like, hands up. Like, I mean, it's so.
That's the Gale Weathers, like, off the record.
But Courtney Cox never like lifted her hands up, like, Scout's honor. Like, I won't tell nobody. But anyway, and then. The fact that, like, when he finds out that she has a past or whatever, like, from when she was in high school, and he was like, how would you not tell me? It's like, it was in high school, Paul. It's over. But
it was 100 years ago.
I just want Alicia Witt to speak to me, like, with determination and almost order me to do something, or just tell me to back off. But but again, like, through all of those sequences, was it mentioned? Maybe I checked out and I didn't hear, but did they ever really kind of like discuss their own context? Like, are they meeting each other for the first time? Did they know each other before? Were they supposed to have feelings prior to the kiss that came out of nowhere? Like I felt very lost as far as their context.
I mean, it's just sort of his character just is very shoehorned in. And like I said, like he's kind of like the outlier of this group, if he even is in the group, because when we first meet him, he's just sort of passing through the coffee shop, and he is, kind of pipes in, and he's just like, "You're telling the story wrong," to Parker, and we find out that Brenda has a thing for him, or supposedly she does, which I don't believe it. I don't believe it for a second. Because it all feels like part of the, even if he's not in on the plan or like a part of it or just like a target of this group, because she's obviously planning to kill everyone in this immediate group. Sure. She's at least like just playing this role of just like, hey, I'm just this kind of like airheaded college girl, and like I like boys, and like, oh look, it's Paul. Oh my god, he's so dreamy, and like, cause she always has these like whenever she runs into him, she's like, hi Paul, and he always ignores her. Like I feel that Brenda would have like this like social wherewithal that she would know that like he's obviously not interested in me. She probably knew that he was interested in Natalie. Mm-hmm. And that's what she was like, sort of, like I said, like she wanted the pieces to come together so it felt like a betrayal, because she wanted to fuck with her and just sort of like momentarily just make her like, you stole my not boyfriend who I was interested in, and that to kind of like lead into the reveal of Wexler and dead in the car.
You may have saved this movie for me in terms of just like the exposition of like what her motive was the whole time, like revenge for her lost would-be husband, perfect boyfriend, and partner. Because I mean, I feel like it's what's the word I'm looking for? It's not weak. But it's just not strong. It may not be weak, but it is certainly not strong. Yeah. So it's just kind of there, and it just kind of feels like, oh, that's why you did all this. Well, that's kind of upsetting. But and then what upset me even more in the screening is when she's just kind of like, and then along comes this other guy, and I don't remember what the lines she says are, but just like basically reiterating like, how many men are you going to steal from me, Alicia Witt? And if I watch that scene now, thinking of Rebecca Gayheart as the unreliable narrator, and and even everybody, like whoever's telling the story as an unreliable narrator, and this is all like a version of maybe of what happened the entire movie, It makes me think like, so what if, what if the whole time Rebecca Gayheart was just making this up? Like, what if this is actually happening? Like, what if we're not just watching a flashback, but like something happened in real time, like with her? Mm-hmm. But she just is looking for a reason to hurt Alicia Witt, and it's like, this guy could have been my next love. He's the first guy to make me feel anything in a life, and none of it is true. It's just an excuse. No. Now I get to cause you pain.
Absolutely. I would love that. No, that's what I was referring to earlier, where it's just like, she's just clearly deranged, and is just going to invent whatever story. There's like photos of them together on her projector screen, which I think was hilarious. But just like, maybe it was just some random guy that she sat with at some party once, and they had a photo taken together. Who never
paid attention to her either.
And she was going to like just go into like this, back catalog of just photos of her, and just like use these things to paint this picture, and just like, maybe she didn't even, it was just like chance that it happened to be Alicia Witt, because like she knew this guy and then found out that he died, and then found out that these two were responsible, and just being like, you know what, the means in which they accidentally killed him were through an urban legend, and she's just like, oh, I'm going to track these two down, and I don't even know them. I don't even really care. But I'm just like, nuts enough that I'm going to do it. Like, that's more interesting to me. And that's what I like to think.
Right.
Because I mean, like I said, like the closing moments of the movie, it just like, it could be anything. Even leading up to that, when when Natalie and Paul are having that conversation before the final scare of her jumping up from the back seat, and she's saying like, "Oh, just imagine like how this story is going to be retold. It's like you'll be a cop." And I'll be crazy and locked away in some institution or whatever. So it's just like, it's just kind of like almost foreshadowing, like what's going to happen, or negating what has happened. So that's the beauty of this. That's why I love it so much, and that's why it doesn't bother me that you have this sort of like weak backstory motive. Because I mean, like I think like for the Scream movies, I think the why done it is very important. And I think that like a lot of people lose track of that. I think it's because the thing is like you have a cast in these movies. This is like any number one of them can be the killer. You could literally, I mean, that's what they do with the posters for the new Scream movies. They basically have everyone postured as the killer on the poster. So it's like you can imagine like, oh, the scenario where Jenna Ortega is the killer or whatever. And that's what people do in their minds anyway, as they're watching the movie or before they see it. So when it turns out to be like this person, it's not like we haven't already thought about it. It's just, and that's why it's so important why they're the killer. And I don't think that like with Urban Legend it necessarily matters why she's the killer, because I think that it's her performance that is so transcendent. And I know that you won't agree with this, but what I love about Brenda, because I actually think that she is a combination of two of my favorite Ghostface killers, which is both Mickey and Mrs. Loomis. I think that she has sort of the urgency of Mrs. Loomis and just sort of like the madness of Mickey. And I think it's just sort of like this perfect blend of both of them in this character that is very theatrical and very entertaining, but also, makes it very personal.
You're right. I don't agree, but that doesn't mean I think you're wrong. It just means I see her definitely having. I mean, I don't want to shit all over Oliphant, but I just see her, in my opinion, having way more fun than he does, and I also see her. But the thing is, I guess I see her maybe, and it's not her fault. I think it's the tenuous reach of her motive, but I mean, just like being a little less convincing in her conviction than Mrs. Loomis, than Laurie Metcalf, because I thought about her while I was watching the reveal, and I was just like, they were going for that "you killed my son," kind of like thing. But it's different when you're going after a guy who's not even your husband,
I also think with Scream, they also have the benefit of, having a previous movie to establish this story and establishing these characters. We never met her fiance, although he is the guy who Tiffany Valentine kills, the cop in the opening scene of Bride of Chucky. For anyone interested in some little cross franchise trivia there, but we didn't know the character, so we don't feel her loss necessarily with that. We just see her madness, and that's why I think that's why I say like she's a combination of Mickey and Nancy Loomis, because like we don't really know all that much about Mickey prior to his time with us in Scream 2. We just know that he's deranged, and with her we just know that she has this like this personal stake in the game. So that's like with Brenda, it's just sort of like, okay, I get that you're like creating this story and you're definitely like giving it, but there's not a lot to you. It's just sort of your madness that is elevating this and making it this larger than life performance out of the whole thing.
Yeah, I do have, again, like I can see the sprinklings in of like the Scream influence, but in a good way. Like I kind of appreciated I definitely appreciated the fact that Rebecca Gayheart's character drips in this Halloween-esque reveal of corpses, like she even Annied herself, by laying there on the mattress. And So that was fun. That felt like, like an illusion. I mean, and you know me with the movie references. It's like, make your own damn movie. Stop referencing shit that other people did. You find your own voice, do your own thing. But I thought that was something that I thought was actually.
I don't know. See, I didn't get that because it was very the whole like the discovery of the corpses. That's just like a tried and true trope of horror movies, especially from the 80s. I was getting, because you could even say like, okay, when what's his face was hanging there in the doorway, it's almost like Crispin Glover, was it in the final chapter when he was like pinned up against the door there. So it's just like I don't see that as like copying. It's just like this is stuff. It's more so like kind of invoking the spirit of the 80s of these slasher movies. That's what I was getting from that. Like this whole, I mean, like this abandoned dorm, which has been like covered in candles. It's so theatrical. It's so gothic. It's so dramatic. Like that's what I love so much about this like leading up to this final reveal. So there's I don't look at this like I get more like when I watch Scream, like there's more like Easter egg shit in that is like way too much. Whereas this, it feels like it belongs there. It feels like it's right at home. So that's why it doesn't bother me here.
Just because I wanted to speak to her more, just give her like her due. Because we already mentioned her, but Loretta Devine in this movie is another. I wish she had more screen time. I love what they gave her to do, and I think she did it incredibly. Just like in terms of like watching, the Pam Grier, movies and
Foxy Brown
so she gets to go full on Foxy Brown at the end and everything, and I'll just have to take care of this myself. And also I love that Loretta Devine is kind of the vocal antithesis of Alicia Witt for me. Like Alicia Witt has that very, open, deep sound, and then Loretta Devine's just up here the whole time. And there's an exchange that they had that I laughed my ass off. It was after it was after Joshua Jackson is killed and everything like that, and everything's been cleaned up, and she's like, you have to go out there, you have to see what I saw. And she takes Loretta Devine out there, and Loretta Devine doesn't see anything. She says, if you don't mind me asking, what the hell are you on? And Alicia Witt's just kind of like, nothing, the car was right there. I have to explain also just backstory for Alicia Witt. Like, ever since the first thing I ever saw her in was John Waters' movie Cecil B. Demented, and she had this incredible speech that she gave to Melanie Griffith. They're all explaining their backstories, but hers was that she was her entire family had sexual relations with her. She had recovered memory. John Waters was making fun of recovered memory, which is basically fake memory. It was something that at that particular time, in the turn of the century, a lot of therapists were trying this recovered memory thing because it would make them more money. If they make you believe some shit happened to you when you were a kid and you just recovered that memory, then, let's work through it. Pay me. So she had recovered memory that her entire family had sexual relations with her under the Christmas tree. And she's telling the story. And Melanie Griffith starts to chuckle when she tells her, and she's just like, you think that's funny? And Melanie Griffith's like, no, I'm sorry, keep telling me. She's like, Santa, why hast thou forsaken me? I cried. Jingle balls, my father cried. And ever since then, I've been in love with her. So anytime I see Alicia Witt in anything, I have to do the impression of the giant voice.
Thank you.
But yeah, so just wanted to shout out for both of them. And you were
Loretta playing Reese. We already talked about how Paul is like the Gale Weathers type because Loretta or Reese would be like the Dewey. Yeah. Because they are the three survivors. I mean, if you are kind of linking it. So I mean, like I agree. Like I see the Scream template that has been created here, and there's a little bit of like different nuance, and then I guess that would make Rebecca the Skeet Ulrich. But I mean, like Brenda is so much more that like she is her own thing. in the grand scheme of everything. Also, I think another interesting touch is that the school's motto, which is on like the school logo, it's Latin, which is translated into "My best friend did it." So it's like, this like fake Pendleton, this fake school, the actual motto in Latin reveals who the killer is before the killer is actually revealed.
That's really cute.
Yeah.
Oh, but one thing I do have to say against Natalie and Paul is Paul.
Where's Paul?
Well, okay.
Where's
Reese gets
Paul?
shot. Yeah, right?
I'm
No,
trying
where's
to say.
Reese? That's what I want to know at the end of the movie. Because, okay, she gets, or not, she doesn't get shot. She gets, is she stabbed?
She gets
I forget.
sliced.
Well, no, she does get
Well, there's
shot.
that beautiful
Sliced.
shot of like Brenda's face, like close up in the eyes. It's all about the eyes, with the windows to the soul, the nipples of the face. And just like the switchblade when she's just like, oh great, rent-a-cops here, and just like, whoosh. So yeah, she does get sliced and she's shot. Or no, she shoots Brenda. Cause she's doing Brenda has the gun. She's like eeny meeny. Yeah. She's like, right. I guess shot in the head isn't an urban legend, but you know, when you're in a pinch or she's like eeny meeny miny, and then Reese Mo as she collapses back to the ground.
So okay, so she gets sliced at and falls down. And then they're like, we're gonna go get help or whatever, and she's laying there, and then they're in the car driving away. Mm-hmm. And I understand the movie
because they didn't think to bring her with. They didn't think to check.
I
on
know
the body
they're just
kind of
like, do you think? She literally asked, "Do you think Reese will be okay?" It's like, we called the paramedics. She'll be fine. And I'm like, you just left her there. That is the most inhuman, selfish. But yeah, exactly. Where the fuck are you going?
There's a campus full of students. I mean, they might be shit-faced, but I mean, there's got to be at least a handful of responsible people studying.
I just heard some out loud to the screen. I said out loud, "Fuck you" to both of them when.
But I think that's kind of like that's the beauty of like this being a retelling. Of just like the characters at the end being like, and the river washed up and they left Reese there because the paramedics were on the way. But it's just at that point, like that's how I can excuse like lapses in logic and just like the practicality of everything, because it's like they've already kind of set up in the mythology of everything that just like, did everything happen the way that it really did? So it's like, in that way, they've kind of made these allowances to have these like stupid shit like that happen. And it doesn't annoy me like it would in a Scream movie where I feel like things are a lot more grounded.
Okay, this question might annoy you. Do we have a name for this killer? Like the way we have like Michael Myers is the shape. Like, do we know what the Parka killer is that
I've heard it just like killer? It's just like the Parka killer, like the hooded killer, but the thing is like the killer in the second movie is wearing a fencing mask with like a leather trench coat sort of thing, so it's like so there's stupid. There's no continuity or consistency between the killers. So it's like, I think that she's just really called Brenda Bates. That's just what she's known as, and that's why it's just like it's not even, you see it once, obviously it's a mystery the first time, but after it's just like that she's the killer, and that's why you if you continued this, you can't do it as a mystery again. You already know it's her, so it's just like I don't see it. It's not like a ghost face sort of thing. It's Brenda. No. She's Hannibal Lecter. She's Norman Bates, like she's
Norman Bates's little sister or bastard daughter. I don't know.
Well, if like Randy and Dewey were like daughter. If Randy and Dewey were talking about it in Baskin Robbins, they'd be like, "There's always room for Norman Bates's daughter." I've also heard some people say that the universes are connected of Scream and Urban Legend, and that the Lois character of the Rebecca plays in Scream 2, the sorority sister, is Brenda, but just like in a different school. So
Oh my
that
God.
I've actually, now this is just ridiculous. This is ludicrous headcanoning. But I'm thinking like that is Brenda. She before she went to Pendleton, she was going to Windsor College to like kill someone there, but she got there and there was like, oh, there's already a killer here. Okay, I'm gonna go somewhere else. Maybe her target was Portia de Rossi.
Just like how like Jade like escaped
Jade from
the trappings
Bride of Chucky,
of Bride of Chucky only to die in Valentine.
Yeah. All these movies are connected.
Every horror movie
Yeah.
is it's like the Castle Rock universe. Every horror movie exists in the same, even the remakes, they all exist in the same universe.
Yeah.
But I did wonder, like, just logistically, like, because maybe you saw and I didn't, but I mean, did Rebecca Gayheart, I guess, or Brenda, wear I still think of Shannon Doherty anytime I say Brenda, isn't that weird? But did she wear like a ski mask underneath like the parka so no one would see her face, or did she just pull like a turtleneck up like really really high just under her eyes or something? Like, did she do
I
anything
think
to
that
mask
like
her
the
face?
well, I mean, obviously she wasn't the stunt performer. Although I would be interested to find out that she was like the one that did the little wave, because she repeats that at the end. She's like, oh, I already got enough of that with Sasha, you know. Like,
No, but I just mean the character, like, because I mean,
no,
Rebecca
I know
Gayheart
what you're
has a
saying.
very
I don't think that it was
impactful face.
visible enough to see. I mean, they obviously were wearing something, but I don't know if that was
Yeah.
like intentionally meant to be seen, because you really can't see anything. I mean, maybe
When the
if it comes out on 4K, it'll be more visible underneath. But no, it's just sort of like this void. It's almost like the cover for like John Carpenter's The Thing, you know, like the parka on the front there. It's just like it could be anyone.
Right.
But
I think there should have been a moment. Her eyes are so recognizable. I wish they'd given her away at one point. I mean, you can't because you need the reveal in this movie. But again, incentive to bring her back for the next movie and have her just kind of moving about the world as Brenda. We know she's guilty, but they don't. But then all of a sudden, like, she makes a mistake and steps into, like, you know, a shaft of light or something, and somebody just sees only her eyeballs and just goes, Brenda? Because I would.
yeah.
I'd recognize Rebecca Gayheart anywhere.
Yeah. I mean, I think that if we're like making comparisons to Valentine, because I think there's definitely things in Valentine that are more successful in that movie than there are here. And I think just like the appearance of the killer, because then you have something a lot more iconic in that movie, whereas the parka thing here is just the parka. So I think that it's not so much about what it looks like, because I even remember the first time we really see it up close is during the Josh Jackson kill, because it's when Natalie turns around and then it's right there in her face. That it's just one of those things that, and that's why I said it doesn't matter. There is no name for it, because once it's revealed to be Brenda, that's the killer. Like it doesn't matter what it looked like before. This is not Ghostface. So maybe that is a flaw of the movie, that they weren't, you know, more particular about what they chose to look like this. You know, maybe they could have done like a Happy Death Day thing, where it's like, what's the school's mascot that we're gonna have this. But apparently, I think that why it might be confusing is that the movie was written to be set during the winter time. And then that just wasn't feasible with the production, but they already had it in the script. So that's why all these characters in the college have this parka, and you know, there are various people wearing it because it was supposed to be winter. I personally I'm glad it wasn't snowing. Like, I really loved the rainstorm, and especially the effect at the beginning over the credits. And just speaking about the credits again, that's another thing that I miss in movies. I miss like the especially when you have a really great composer like Christopher Young, where you can set a mood with the score. And I think that that's a thing that like Scream kind of changed for a lot of I mean, not just these movies, but just like movies in general, because you don't get a title card anymore. It's all like the movie just starts. And I miss that. There's something about seeing like the people involved and the cast and all that and the logo and just the like a beautiful score that really kind of like prepares me for the movie and sets the tone for it. And that's something that I really miss.
Yeah, it ushers your brain into it. But I mean, it's a very specific mindset. I can also understand, like, I think the independent film boom, like the industry was, people were, finding that the most interesting stories weren't always being told by the studios. A lot of them were being independently funded and, kind of like workshopped, like around, or just shopped around, like for people to catch them. And then we get all these, sleeper hits, and then soon, studios are making movies in that style. They're creating their own independent, division of movies for like movies like that, but we'll put a little money behind it. But I mean, there's something to be said for like, cold opens and opening with just like a tableau and not answering any questions, and then just kind of title card, and that's the movie's up and running, or something like, or the title card at the end of the movie. Like I like all of it, but I do agree with you. There's something about the journey, like it's almost kind of like being ushered into the experience of film watching when you get a score. And I mean, I think the master for me growing up, the one who I always looked forward to because he always delivered up until a point, until I grew up, but it was Tim Burton. The journey, it was always a journey that you would take through any opening credits for any of his early movies, like the first half of his career. Watch any of those movies and you are on a ride. I can't speak to what he's
like
made
Batman
in like the last
Returns.
10 years or so. Oh,
going down the sewer.
And the Danny Elfman score. Well, we can unpack that one day maybe, but because it's horror adjacent.
Oh, absolutely, I agree.
Getting to the DC of it all, there's one more actor who I just wanted to address is Michael Rosenbaum specifically. I get so much joy. I don't think I even knew who he was the first time that I watched this, and now I'm a huge Smallville fan. He is my Lex Luthor, and I adore him. And just seeing him play this incredibly different and douchey character who also had this kind of like accessible humanity when he opened the microwave and found the dog explosion, as it were. Yeah.
You know what? That's like the one thing that I just like, really, Brenda? Like, did you have to do that? That I don't agree with. But
I'd like
you can
to
kill the
think
people.
She just put like,
but
no, I'd like to think she just put some pasta sauce in the microwave.
That could have been like the Friday the 13th Part 2 ending, where after there's like a scratching at the door, and they're like, oh my, Paul, like open the door. There's Hootie, and you're like, come here, Hootie, as Brenda like jumps back into the window behind them.
Yeah. Oh my God, that would have been amazing. But
that would have been too. That would have been too on the nose.
One homage too many. Yeah, that's a bridge too far. But anyway, but
yeah, she just
playing that.
But I mean, yeah, she was a gaslighter. She was a manipulator. She might have just taken a bunch of like spaghetti sauce or whatever and just like put it all over the microwave
just to fuck with his mind. I would have preferred that. Actually, I'm gonna tell myself that that's what happens. I don't know if it looks like pasta sauce. I'd have to watch it again. But it did. Drippy. It made me sad.
All right, new headcanon. We're just creating all this new headcanon for the movie.
Which is actually kind of like per the course for movies by this filmmaker, because that's what I do when I watch Valentine. There are two killers for me in Valentine, and then one must go by the end of the movie.
Very Roman Angelina. Yeah.
You did it. Yeah.
No, that's fine. And you know what? I love. I mean, if you ask Jamie Blanks, like, he will insist that there's just one. It's just the one killer in that movie. But I think that also kind of like is a testament to his films, that you can kind of like look at them and make up all this headcanon of just like, what is actually going on here? Because and this is another thing that just like speaks to just like the level of like the quality that he puts into his work, that he leaves it open to interpretation. Well, it's still like very direct to say what's happening, but you can still look at it and just be like, well, maybe this happened. There's still like a possibility. And you definitely get that with both of these movies, and I think that's the mark of a really good filmmaker.
I'll end on an upswing as well, just because it feels like we're winding down. After they see, because they do resolve that thing, Brenda and Natalie in the car. I'll use their character names, where she's just kind of like happy that like, so you and Paul, huh, or whatever. It's just kind of like, yeah, I'm sorry, and. And she's just kind of like, well, I'm happy for you, whatever the dialogue is. But I appreciated that. I actually thought that was legitimately sweet, even though I know what's coming, but isolated as a moment. I'm like, oh, that's a really well played out moment. And then the fact that the next thing that happens is they open up the trunk. And don't they see Robert Englund in there?
Yes.
In the trunk? Yeah. In the trunk of Paul's car.
He's dead.
And then that's when Rebecca Gayheart says, like I said, he's all yours. And then they start to run. I did laugh out loud at that moment as well. I thought, like, oh, there's a charm. There is a charm that recurs throughout this movie.
What I love about that...
Okay,
because you've just opened up another thing with Brenda there. Because there's a few things that I like with that scene. First of all, Brenda's the one that, like, 'cause she's the one that's, I believe, is just like, what's that smell? So she's kind of like...
Right.
Already like planting the seeds, just like just introducing the thing. And even when she hugs her, because it's on her face, and she kind of has this like moment where her eyes are shifty for a second, and it's just like, even though she's hugging her, it's just like, if you watch it again, she's just like, yeah, I'm gonna kill you, bitch, because it's her enemy. But then what I love about that moment that you say, like I said, he's all yours, and they run off. Because what I think is so funny about that scene is, like, they're in public. They're at a store. There's lots of people around. There's a dead body. The sensible thing to do would just, like, stay where you are, or go into the store, or just, like, stay in that lit area, because it was very bright. I think that was, like, the gas station from the beginning that Michelle had initially went by, the one that was, like, a lot busier or brightly lit. To stay there and just call the police to the attendant or whatever, and just like, let's get them down here. But the fact that Brenda is trying to isolate Natalie they're just like, we need to run, like, run, bitch, like, let's go. That she's even got her so hysterical that she's not thinking logically or with common sense that we're gonna run off into the bush. And you know what the thing is, like, I think the first time that I saw that's probably the moment where I knew that she was the killer. Because it was just so convenient that Brenda was, first of all, still alive. Like, as the best friend character, like, you would have thought, like, okay, at this point she's going to die. She must be the killer. And the fact that they're running away and she gets separated, like, I've seen too many of these movies. That's where I knew it was her. That, like, when we did get to the reveal and she sat up in the bed, it didn't like, shock me. But still, like, everything that followed is just like, it made up for it. But that whole sequence of things that happen, because that was a coincidence where the janitor comes by and he's got the coat, and then I guess, did she double back and get Paul's car? Because that's what she was chasing them with. That I forget. You're asking
the wrong person.
That I would have to watch again. Yeah, I know you don't pay attention to things like that.
No.
Because at that point, Natalie still thought that it was Paul, except for the brief moment where she thought that it was the janitor. But it was just like, it was more shit that was just like conveniently lining up for Brenda, which I just thought was hilarious. Yeah.
Just one more thing, just in the vein of like flashbacks. Another thing that made me laugh my ass off. It's just when Alicia Witt starts breaking down, the story. She's disclosing the story about her and Michelle Mancini in the car and what happened that night and everything, like why she's, was in trouble in high school. And she starts off saying, "We were in the car that night," and then they cut to a shot of her with completely different hair, and all I thought was the line, it's like, that curly followed. Yeah, I just thought the line that should have followed, the speech should have gone like this: "We were in the car that night. I had a very tight perm then to show that time had passed." I just wanted that to be, again, I don't need it in the movie. It's a little self-conscious, again, bridge too far. But There's a lot to enjoy in this film. I'm very grateful that I got to revisit it. I don't think I could ever count it among my favorites or anything like that, but I would definitely screen it for friends and watch them.
I mean, it's a 4 out of 5 on Letterboxd. So not like a favorite,
wow.
but there's something so watchable and enjoyable about this. I mean, like, I've watched it so many times in the last couple of months here. That and I might watch Valentine again now that we've been talking about it, but yeah, everything is great. There's so much that we didn't even like cover here, because I think like even like the Tara Reid chase scene, I love that building. Like, I imagine that was probably because it was filmed at University of Toronto, and just like that staircase, just like the way all of that was filmed, and her like hanging off the edge there, her performance, like just like this sort of
her whimpers and cries got me. I was laughing.
Yeah,
so
it's a lot, but it works. It's just that's campy. If there's like any campiness to this, it's with her performance. But it's still like I enjoy it. Like I love the fact that she's in the movie, and the library scene you talked about earlier. Like, I love that too. I was kind of getting like Carrie in that scene as well. Not like intentional, not like homage or callback, but just like Alicia Witt, like kind of like going through the stacks of the library.
Sure.
That was a really great location. Like they scouted a lot of like great practical locations at U of T that just like really worked. It just they had the right atmosphere for this story that they were telling. And that's the thing. Like, even like some of the more or like the less interesting scenes always at least were watchable. Like, I never like would lose my attention, or just the movie wouldn't lose my attention, because I think that the setting of everything was just great. Like, there's just this old school that this was all taking place in. So I think that just in terms of like everyone in this production, like they put a lot of thought and care and detail into everything that just makes this movie very similar to Scream, of just like all these moving parts that just like, came together. And they don't come together in the same way that Scream does, but it's still, it was a great effort. And I say effort because I still think it's just like, it's doing something completely different than what Scream has done, while still being very similar. But it's still in my opinion, the best of what came after that. I think it's way better than I Know What You Did Last Summer, which I think has a lot of problems. I think that there's people sometimes take Sarah Michelle Gellar and allow that to kind of blind themselves to the quality of the movie, because I think that she's great in the movie. I don't think that the movie around her is that great. Whereas this, I feel Sarah Michelle Gellar is actually she was going to play the Sasha role, and either it's just like it was like, this is too much, it's too much horror, or scheduling with Buffy, whatever it was that she didn't do it. And I'm glad she didn't, because I feel like someone like Sarah Michelle Gellar probably would have taken away from the overall story experience, because it's just it would have been
one more great actor who it's just kind of like, this is what you have them doing, like, come on. You've got a stable of very, very capable actors, like, use them, come on. But
and a great cast all around. And I agree, like, it's hard to pick. I mean, I know who's not my favorite, but we'll just say that everyone looks back on this movie very lovingly, just in terms of like the people in the production and the cast. And there's one individual who shall not be named, but they just, I mean, as far as they're concerned, they were never in this movie, or they don't talk about it, or just like it didn't actually exist. And I think that's rude, for one, because I mean, like, maybe you think that this movie is beneath you, but I'm not even. Why am I sugarcoating it? It's Jared.
Right.
He actually like has said in interviews when asked about it, he's just like, I was never in that movie, and it's just like fuck you.
I'm sure there's
Which
a
is
great many people who would feel the same way about like saying like, no, I don't know Jared Leto.
and what I think it's funny is that like there's like if you look at like pictures behind the scenes of like all the cast together, everyone is like big smiles and stuff. And I don't want to like say this specifically because sometimes I'm like maybe in a group setting and I'm like in a picture and I might just be like standing there like whatever. But he was like, you could tell he did not want to be there. He just looked miserable, and it checks out with how he looks back on this movie. And I think that he's one of those people that probably looks down on movies like this, and it was just like a job that he had to do to advance his career. And it's unfortunate that he would kind of like belittle the production and the people that were involved, because I mean like this is actually a really good movie, just like one of the better ones of this ilk. And I know that Jamie Blanks has like spoken highly about Jared, or at least on like Twitter or whatever, just like congratulated him for his successes. So it's just kind of in poor taste that it's not reversed that way. It's just like everyone has their beginness in their career, and it's just like that anyone would kind of like look back on something especially this caliber, which is so good, and just kind of poo-poo it. Like it's just
well, I mean, and not to speak in his defense or anything like that, but just maybe to kind of like, something occurred to me while you were telling me that, because I did not know, but I knew exactly who you were talking about before you named him. I didn't know. I think we all did. But like I would have been surprised if it had been anybody else. But that said, I think given his role, like his job within the movie, seems to be the least fun out of anybody else. Like, I mean, everybody else, I would take everybody else's role, be it male, female, or otherwise, over his, because it's just, there's just less fun to be had there.
Yeah, which is crazy to think about, because like he is like we said, it's the Gale Weathers role. Like he's this journalist who's,
but for a school newspaper.
But like, no, but even still, the school newspaper, and I don't want to attribute this to. I mean, it could be part of the writing that he was written to be that way, but I mean, like, there's still like, as an actor, there's something that you can bring to the role to kind of like transcend that, and I think just given his attitude about the movie today, or even like years before when he did speak about the movie, it just seemed like he knew how he felt about the project was at the time, and it was just like, I'm not gonna try. It's just I'm just gonna do what they needed me to do. I am like a pretty face that they hired, and that's all I'm going to be here. And I don't have to do anything else. And I'm going to move on, and I'm going to do, what do you do like after this? Panic Room or whatever.
Requiem for a Dream. And Jesus. Well,
so I think that, there could have been fun to be had. So it just might have been like the way he approached it.
Oh, I mean, yeah. I do believe fun is where you make it. Like one of my favorite things to do back in, my acting days, even before I had any training or anything like that, I loved getting the role that nobody wanted, because then you could just turn it into something that all of a sudden people go, oh my gosh, you did so well. Like, what? How did you do? And it's like, your expectations were low. So it's easy to surpass them. Ka-ching! Yeah. Anyway.
All right. Well, let's head over to the cherry picker, and I know there's so much to talk about with this movie, but this is gonna go on forever. Yeah,
I know. I have more notes, but we can always do a part 2 if it has another anniversary or something down the line.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah. With that said, let's get to the cherry picker.
It's not like we killed people on purpose.
All right, so cherry on top. I mean, most of this episode has basically been cherry on top. But I mean, if you haven't figured it out by now, it is Brenda Bates, Rebecca Gayheart, MVP of this movie. Where are you, Rebecca? Like, please return to acting. The last thing she was in was she had a bit part in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. She played Brad Pitt's wife in a flashback scene. His nagging wife, who he supposedly murdered or like drowned in the ocean. She disappeared. I need to watch that again still. Yeah.
Yeah, I that movie made me sad.
Okay.
Anyway.
All right. Interesting.
Alternate realities don't give me solace, but whatever.
No, that's fair. Anyway, with that, last week we watched What Lies Beneath, and we asked you who deserves to die the most between my nomination of Norman Spencer versus your nomination of Dr. Drayton. And across Patreon, Instagram, and YouTube, the vote came to 598 for Norman Spencer versus 95 for Dr. Drayton.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
95 is a lot of people, so thank you. If you were in my house right now, I'd feel claustrophobic, so thanks.
And honestly, it might have been more, but I literally forgot to post the poll. And that's why I said, like, I'm just fashionably 5 minutes late, or just whatever she does when she's running off to the bathroom. But no, I got
5 minutes.
Yeah. No, he's like, we're gonna be fashionably 5 minutes late.
Yeah, right.
But no, I totally spaced because I got so busy with other projects, and sure. I don't know. I mean, I can never count on you to be like, where's the poll? Because I know you'll forget too.
Life, it moves pretty fast in our circles.
But yeah, we got it out there just in the nick of time. So sorry for the lateness. But anyway, Britt Bratt. I love that you guys are going to be discussing this movie. It's been a punchline as to why I don't like sitting in bathtubs. It's a personal punchline because no one I've ever said it to remembers this movie.
Oh,
I remember this movie.
I do too.
Yeah. Silent Saturn, the consensus of the cherry picker was always to not choose people who might be bad but are still enjoyable to watch. Well, I enjoy watching shirtless, oiled up Norman quite a bit, so Dr. Drayton gets the chop. I mean, within reason, if someone is enjoyable, but there's not a lot of characters in that movie, so it's
enjoyable is a very open to your perspective kind of word.
Yeah, absolutely.
We all have our own definitions. Yeah,
that's correct. Bananas are good. Haven't thought about this movie in so long. I remember it being pretty damn good. Dr. Drayton, actor, can't catch a break. He was killed in Terminator 2 as well. He was...
And Zack Snyder's Justice League also.
I don't know what that is. Not because I prefer the other version, just because I never watched a fucking...
It's just the most recent thing I've seen him killed in. He's been killed many times.
No, I don't... I'm not on the superhero movie train, for context. Amethyst Frost, Norman it is. With the way this movie plays out, having few major characters, and with nearly all wrongdoings being sourced to one man, inevitably, whichever host was able to pick Norman would get the win. But Dr. Drayton also had nothing on Tree's mom in terms of being the iconic, hilarious, what the fuck cherry picker nomination from Eddie.
Thanks.
Also, if I don't remember if I mentioned this last week, but Amethyst Frost created a spreadsheet of all of the past cherry picker, I guess, winnings.
Tallies.
Yeah. And there's a link to it on our YouTube page. So just in the About section or wherever it is, if you're checking us out, I'll do this section early. If you are new to the cherry picker and you are listening to us, go over to the YouTube page and subscribe, and you'll find all the links there. And if you are watching us on YouTube, you can also listen to us. The RSS feed link is in the descriptions down below. But yes, thank you to Amethyst Frost, who does this all on their own time. And, you know, it's not just like the results of the previous polls, but there's also trivia about the podcast that like we didn't even know. Like, we're currently episode 83 is this one. But there's all the information about the Cherry Picker After Darks. There's information about the old podcast that we used to do, which the tally is still included there in terms of like who's had the most wins. So yeah, if you're invested in the Cherry Picker podcast, you definitely want to go check out this spreadsheet, because there's a lot of fun trivia on there. I'm really impressed and appreciative of that. So thank you.
Yeah,
Amethyst.
thank you.
Michael CZ60B. There's no way I can pronounce that. Would to hear you guys review Wes Craven's Red Eye. I should really read these before I read them. We've done Red Eye. We did that. Yeah, we did that a while ago. Go check it out. Grant Dempsey. Nobody's seen this movie. That's why people are just putting random comments in. Grant Dempsey. I love Joe Morton, the actor, but I have to vote Dr. Drayton, not because of the fireball, but because I voted for every other therapist who's been on the Cherry Picker chopping block so far this year. Megan, Scream 6, Chucky Season 2. At this point, I feel obligated to keep it up. There's a trend. We've had some.
That is great.
We've had some bad therapists.
Movies tend to lean in that direction.
Yeah.
I talk to my sister about it all the time.
Yeah.
As a therapist, she takes personal offense.
Sean Princik. So Harrison Ford is a bad guy now. Et tu, Indiana. The therapist was pretty bad. Can't believe he suggested she get a Ouija board. But who I hated more than the therapist, oh, you're not going to like this, was her friend who kept laughing at her during the seance.
No.
Her friend is dealing with some real shit, and all she can do is laugh at her. Ultimately, I have to go with Norman. Just a crazy, deranged man who fell in love with his own self-importance. Also, did anybody else get creepy vibes from what he said about Caitlin in the climax? I don't even understand his plan. He says he wanted to spend the rest of his life with Claire, yet he has an affair with a student and then later tries to kill Claire in the tub. What even was his goal anyway? Maybe he was upset because Catwoman can wield the whip better than Indy. I never thought about the fact that they both have whip training.
Anthony DeLongis trained her in Batman Returns, and I remember in the Bat, the Cat, the Penguin, the little half-hour featurette. It's on the Batman Returns Blu-ray and DVD and everything if you get the collector's edition, and you get to see him say, she's doing things with the whip that is going to make Indiana Jones green. That was prescient, I think. I think he knew she was going to play his wife, and he was going to try and kill her.
That was the origin. That was Norman's villain.
That was the beginning of the feud, the rift between the two of them.
So glad that it all just worked out that way.
She still has her whip. I wonder if he has his.
Yeah. I mean, well, I don't know. I still haven't seen the new Indiana, so
I haven't seen Crystal Skull.
If he has a new whip
the fifth one. I haven't seen the new ones at all. I've only seen the original trilogy.
Strife 19. Admittedly, I haven't seen this movie since it first came out, so I don't even have memory of the Doctor, let alone what he did to deserve death. But I do remember that Harrison Ford's character cheated on his wife, killed his mistress, and attempted to kill his wife when she discovered the truth. So Han Solo has to go. Sucked.
Cute.
Says Harrison Ford, because every time I see Joe Morton, he's always suffering something, whether it's the Terminator in T2 or as an alien and brother from another planet. Plus, Harrison Ford looked terrible as a CGI cartoon in Dial of Destiny.
So we're just reaching into other categories, other films in their catalog that. That's why they should die.
Jazzy Dav. I don't know why I voted because I haven't seen this movie, but I voted for Norman. He just looks guilty. But now I'm thinking I should have voted for Olivia Pope's dad. I guess that's a reference to something else.
Keep it
Freaky
going.
Taxi. I'm pretty sure Norman kills a woman and tries to kill his wife. I don't know what the doctor did, but I'm assuming malpractice. So Norman. And then Movie Maniac. I haven't seen this movie. I tried looking for it, but I couldn't find it, so I'm voting for Han Solo. Just on the basis that they did him so dirty in the sequel trilogy. Fuck those movies with all my heart. Where did you watch the movie?
I streamed it off Redbox, I think. Is that where I said I rented
Okay.
it?
I don't know.
I think that's where I got
You're
it. I
asking
think
the
that's where
wrong
I got
person.
Yeah, well, let me
Okay,
look and
well,
see if
yeah,
it's on
that's.
there.
I mean,
I think
pretty
I
easy.
streamed
Just
it off
Google,
Redbox.
like, where can I watch What Lies Beneath?
I mean, yeah, if you go to IMDb even, they usually have links on the
Yeah.
app to like whatever platform is
Yeah.
streaming it. And
I mean-
if you already have a subscription, you can watch, just stream it.
I've had the DVD. I'm holding it now for like the longest time, and I bought the Blu-ray to replace this to watch it. So
Yeah.
like, I mean, if you want to spend like $20 or however much it might be, if you've never seen it before, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think I
guess-
spent $3 on Redbox because it is
There's that
streaming on
too,
Redbox
yeah.
for sure. Yeah.
If you're a collector, I definitely recommend having
go
it.
for
But yeah, if you've never seen it, maybe just rent it. But anyway, Urban Legend. I get first dibs.
Yeah.
I was going to say Dean Adams,
Yeah.
but now I'm thinking like, why not Jared? I mean, I know it's not Jared, but like Paul.
It is.
Because you're
It
absolutely
is.
right. Because like Paul, I want to find out what his last name is. Because Paul, he's not a fun character. He's. I don't. And like I said, I don't think he's a bad character. But they definitely do not have chemistry together. And for all the reasons I already said, I'm just I'm probably not gonna win this one. But I'm just gonna say Paul. I'm looking up his last name because I want to be a completionist. Gardner, Paul Gardner.
I think you're underestimating people's antithesis toward their animosity towards Jared Leto.
Yeah.
Wasn't he in something that we did before and people voted for him just because he was Jared
Did
Leto? Or am I
we-
thinking of someone else?
No, I don't think we've covered any movie. Keep talking. I'm gonna look this up. though.
Okay. Because it feels familiar. Maybe I'm thinking about another actor who irritates people, but but I feel like he must have been, or maybe we just mentioned.
This
him,
is the
like he's
perfect
kind of-
opportunity for me to look at Amethyst Frost's spreadsheet. with
Oh
all-
yeah, go for it. But okay, so that's rough because he's definitely he would have been my choice. But I mean, there's a lot of people that's what's rough because everybody else is kind of like on par with one another. I'd say like I didn't like Michelle Mancini. No, I'm starting to lose my vocabulary. Michelle Mancini's reaction that we mentioned already to Brad Dourif, which is just like freak show, and I'm just like, you bitch. But also, I mean, like little things were really irking me about people in this movie. There was that girl who I don't think I can nominate her because I don't believe she has a name.
You can nominate people without names.
Oh wait,
You just have to make up a name for
those
her,
side
yeah.
characters in Scream, but
Yeah.
no, because I mean, well, a contender is that girl who, after Danielle Harris, is like being wheeled out on, I think it's a gurney,
Yeah.
or maybe in a body bag. I don't remember, but she's getting, they're getting her out of her room after she's been killed, and this one girl just says, "Hey, better check her pulse. She's looked like that for years." And I was like, "What the fuck?"
That's the same one who, like, in the scene before that, when she was coming home for the night, said, "Sounds like Elvira's raising more than just the dead in there."
Oh right,
Yeah.
God, was such a that's no. Oh God, okay, sorry, not to go back to like critiquing the movie, but just like all of the ironic use of language among these characters, like
Yeah.
it's such a default. With
That was a
these
very Scream thing. But I mean, she was like a goth girl, so it's.
I know, but even like it'd be like if I were just kind of like, oh yeah, Zack Cherry, because you're the one who I'm gonna want to have my back if I'm running from a crazed killer, and then 20 minutes later, I'm running from a crazed killer and I'm screaming, Zack Cherry! Where are you? But anyway, Dean Adams is a shit too. But okay, I guess the shittiest one for me, and I might lose, but I don't care. It really bothered me when I was watching the flashback sequence after I laughed at Alicia Witt's perm. But Michelle Mancini, I'm going to go with Michelle Mancini because, I mean, I drive for my day job. I have to commute to get to it. So I'm behind the wheel quite often. I have been behind the wheel for many, many jobs. And on the road, like, you have to have each other's backs. You have to, you know, think safety. You have to, you know, like, I don't, and the fact that she was like irresponsibly, you know, making a person think that they were in danger while, you know, like, you know, chasing them down with her brights on and everything like that. It's irresponsible and gross, and it didn't help that Alicia Witt didn't say anything while it was going on. But it's just, it's like, say something, like. But at the same time, like, the worst sin is actually being in control of the vehicle and not, you know, not giving it the responsibility and the respect that it deserves, because it can kill people. It can hurt you. It can hurt your friend. So I think she's a shit. I think she's a terrible person. And then, just on top of that, she treated Brad Dourif really badly. I understand her perspective, but come on. Like, either stay in your car and be like, no, I'm fine, thank you. And then, you know, or like when he's locking the door, don't flip out. Just be like, what's going on? Grab a weapon and just ready yourself. I mean, there's so many things she could have done. So just up and down, I'm trying to think if there's anything positive about Michelle Mancini aside from her playing tapes in her car. That's it. So, and anybody can do that. So fuck her. Kill Michelle Mancini.
Terrible singing as well.
Oh God!
Yeah.
Didn't even think about.
How do you not remember the lyrics? That's another thing. But
happens all the time.
And here we go. You're absolutely right. There was a previous Jared Leto. So episode 48, American Psycho, which we did December 27th of 2022. So the nominations were Paul Allen, who was played by Jared Leto, versus Detective Kimball, who was Willem Dafoe's character, and Paul was the winner by 85%. So useful information right there.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see.
Thank you, Amethyst.
Yeah, like all this information is there. It's really neat. I would somehow bring it up on the screen, but I can't. So yeah, everyone should check it out. So that's really cool. So those are your nominations. You've got he's playing another character named Paul. I was gonna say Paul Allen. Paul Gardner, not Allen. Versus Michelle Mancini. Michael Mancini's lost sister from Melrose
Long lost
Place.
sister, yes.
Yeah. So vote your heart, vote your conscience. You can vote on Instagram. Go follow us there at the Cherry Picker Pod. You can vote here on YouTube if you are watching. So that's going to be in the community section every week. So yeah, please subscribe to us there. Also, you can vote on Patreon. So you can vote 3 times over if you become a Patreon supporter, and we would greatly appreciate that as well. Edward, where can they find you on the socials?
The socials you can find me on are the Instagram, the Letterboxd, the YouTube, and I got a TikTok. I'm not using it, but feel free to follow me there if you want. I haven't been on it in like over a week, but I need to figure it out. I need to get my.
All right. Well, we won't. Thank you.
Edward is truth. One word, traditional spelling. What about you, Zack Chara?
You can find me at my main YouTube channel, Zack Cherry, ZACK, space, CHERRY. I am on Instagram at Retro Bitch Face, all one word. I am on Twitter, or whatever it's called these days, Zack Cherry 8.
X?
And I am on Letterboxd, Zack Cherry. Same spelling with the K. And yeah, that's it. I don't know what else is out there. But yes. Did I cover everything? This is the portion of the show
you need
where
a checklist. You need a
I
checklist,
have
like
one
a
usually, but
Xerox.
we've done this so many times that we've already talked about everything. Yes. Now it just comes to the moment. We know what's happening next week. Next week is going to be Buffy season 6, but the week after that will be, we didn't discuss this and I know you won't remember, but it's Saw.
Oh.
The original. Yeah.
Oh. Iocane powder. That's just Carrie Elways in Princess
Okay.
Bride.
Yeah. More on that in the Saw pod. Anyway, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. I hope you all love Urban Legend as much as we did, and we will be right back.